And cut away. We were scrapped for time last time, but we are back, and hopefully we are here to finish it this time around for the ZR Director's Commentary.
Let's fucking go!
Let's get it! So, I realized that in retrospect, as we were talking about episode 9, there's a couple things that I was thinking about that we just totally missed. I think one of the first things I wanted to touch on was this whole introduction scene in episode 9 for Maya, giving her more of a backstory. So the idea for the story, I can't remember if it was me or Scourge that came up with it, where she was like stranded on this island. I think we came up with the idea like years ago, maybe during the time of Legacy's filming.
Yeah, it feels like I think we came up with it around the same time that we were talking a bunch about like Alex's backstory and stuff. And there was just like, Maya doesn't really have a story. We should do something with that. So
yeah. And I think by the time we were doing all the screen runnings and stuff for the various episodes, I think by episode 9 I was like, oh, that fun little backstory for Maya we never even got around to, and I kind of feel bad. And now that I have all these mods at my disposal, might as well start using them. So I think around, it was either episode 7 or 8 when I was like, okay, I'm pretty, for the most part, I'm like 90% comfortable with how the mods work and stuff. And it was actually around this episode here when I ran into a technical difficulty within the game. So I don't know if any of y'all, probably almost no one on Earth that has used the Rockstar editor even knows this, but when you're recording clips while playing the game to edit later in the Rockstar editor, there's actually a limit with how many of those clips you can actually record, and that limit is 800. So this is the first episode where I actually got to that limit. I can't remember what point during filming I ran into that limit, but I checked online, and thank goodness I found somebody else with a similar predicament to me. But what you can do is you can actually manipulate the files on your PC. You can take out all of, like, there's all these like recorded files from the game that you have in the Rockstar editor, and you can actually copy those files, put them into another folder somewhere else on your PC. That way the folder where you can record all the clips is fresh. You can go back to the game, finish your filming, and then when you're done, swap out those clips, and then, you know, edit them, do all the exporting from that, and then replace the files with the latter batch of files that you have, do all of those, export them, etc., and then boom, you have all of the footage on your computer, and there's essentially no limit. You just have to do that file swapping. So thank goodness I figured that out, because if I couldn't, I would have had, it would have taken the episode significantly longer to make, because I would have had to, you know, once I hit that 800 clip limit, do all the camera shots, all the exports, get all that stuff done, and then go back and then film some more. And I really don't want to do that. The way I like to make things is when I'm filming, I like to do it all in one go as much as I can. I don't want to be stopped in the middle and then have to do all the camera shot changes and exports, and I'm like, oh crap, I still have to do like half the episode in terms of filming. Ugh. But no, thankfully I didn't have that problem. So, and plus I was getting pretty comfortable with the mods as well. Actually, during the filming of episode 9, I ran into a pretty big problem that I was actually able to get around with. So I mentioned before that whenever Rockstar edits, or whenever Rockstar updates the game, I think, Scourge, you understand this all too well, is whenever the game updates, the mods stop working. They just don't work. In fact, the game doesn't launch whatsoever, and you have to wait for someone to update this script that allows the mods to work. And sometimes that can take a couple days. It could take a few weeks. Just depends on how complex the update was. And during my filming, literally in the middle of it, Rockstar decided to come out with a game update. And then sure enough, the game wouldn't launch, the mods wouldn't work. But then I figured out a way to get around that. So what I did was I copied the GTA 5 application file, the GTA 5.exe file, and I found that there was a older version of the game that I could use that were still compatible with my mods. And so I copied that one, I put it somewhere else, I went ahead and just updated the game, and then when the update was done, I took the files I copied and replaced them back over the existing ones. And then boom, my game launched, I didn't have to wait for updates, and I could keep filming. And the number of times I had to do that for the finale was quite a few. I think Rockstar must have updated the game like 12 times. That was so annoying. So every few weeks, you know, whenever they would come out with a new patch, I would update the game, and then I would have those saved files of the working game files where my mods would work somewhere else on my computer and replace them. The only caveat with this though was that, you know, I would have the base game files in my Steam, and then I would have the saved files that were compatible with my mods somewhere else, which means I essentially had 2 copies of GTA 5 on my computer at all times, which was eating up my hard drive space.
Yeah,
And
for sure. I remember so many times that you would message me because of Rockstar updating, and you would message in like all caps in the middle of recording and be like, "Fuck my life."
Yep. And Scourge, I think you were like, dude, I get it.
Yeah,
Because you've been through the same fucking thing.
Absolutely, and obviously with a lot of the case with these scripts, mods, anything like that, it's all non-profit fan stuff anyway. So not only are you waiting for them to do it, but you can understand that people are just doing this stuff in their free time anyway. So there's literally nothing you can do. You have to just sit on your hands and wait. So,
and I'm so happy I found that workaround. So, because I was really getting sick of that, and I knew that it was just going to get worse. So, and thankfully, by the way, I'm so happy I finished filming ZAR before Rockstar made GTA 5 Legacy and GTA 5 Enhanced. I'm so glad I got it done before they did that. Can you imagine? Because they completely changed how the files in the game work. Which, and I heard from people that it's called what's the name of that mod script called again? It's something like, I can't remember what it's called exactly. It's but the time it took for that, I forgot what his name is, but there's a guy who single-handedly has to update the script, mod script for that. It took him weeks to fix that. And I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't have that problem. So glad I got it done before they... I think probably after I finished ZR, maybe a few weeks later they announced that. I was like, man, the timing of that, bro. Rockstar, you're making me shit my pants over here. Anyway, so I knew for this episode, since that Cayo Perico update came out, where I was able to mod the game and essentially play on that island whenever I wanted to, I knew that I wanted a separate island for Maya to be started on, and thankfully I found a big mod here where I was able to spawn in this entire island. But of course there were some issues with it. What I had to do was, you have to install like this giant thing for the menu script I talked about that adds all these extra textures, all these extra like objects and stuff that you have to spawn in as well. And so you have to install all those things. And the file size for it was fucking huge. I think this island was like 10 gigs. It's something ridiculous. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start adding all these other mods to it, it adds up. And keep in mind, I had 2 copies of GTA 5 on my PC. On top of that, I had to export all of the video footage onto my computer. So ZER was taken probably close to anywhere from 300 to 400 gigs per episode. Literally.
Yeah, honestly, man, I'm jumping a little bit here when we go into episode 10, and there was like some of the clips that you had sent me to throw some effects on. Those clips I did not expect, like, I was not expecting the file size of them to be so huge. Like, they were so big, and they were all in 4K or something, some high resolution, that like I was putting them into my editing suite, and it was just like, my computer could not handle it. My computer was breaking.
Yeah, sorry about that. Blame the fans because they wanted the finale to be in 4K. No, I'm just kidding. It's just no, but I'm glad I got this mod to work with this island. It is kind of finicky though, because like if you watch it, you'll notice like during a previous part of this scene here, you'll notice like a lot of like pop-ins and stuff. And if you look closely, some of these trees aren't even touching the ground; they're like floating just a little bit. And I had to do some
oh my god, I see it.
Some see right on the right, that tree's not touching the ground. On the left, very left, it's not touching the ground.
Oh my god.
What's that? Wow.
So, like, whoever put this island mod together, you just didn't give a shit that much, did you? You just kind of threw it together. Now, I could have moved the trees down a little bit, but there was so many of them that I gave up halfway through and said, I'm just going to do some camera shot cheating here to hopefully, or you change the perspective of it so it's harder to see. So, oh my goodness, yeah, you can kind of see it there. Hopefully with like these perspective, it's hard to tell. And right here, if you notice, look at the bottom, the trees kind of disappear.
Oh yeah, there's like so much pop in and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, they just pop out like, oh my god.
When you're modding a whole island, things are going to be very finicky, and some of like the lines between the grass and the rocks, it's literally a line instead of like fading into the rock. So, but people at the time didn't seem to care, but now it's like, oh man, this mod could have been a lot better. But this was actually like right there on the left, that line that separates the grass and the rock. Ugh. It literally looks like Legos put together. But
what you have there is called texture clash.
Yeah.
Look at that. It looks like Maya's lying on like a mat or something, like a rug.
Yeah, literally. At the time though, this was the best island mod I could find, believe it or not. So I mean, it worked for what it was.
Worked, yeah.
I didn't want to use Cal Perico, I wanted to use something else.
I'm glad we got this piece of story in for Maya, because we were running out. I feel like we were running out of time with the story to kind of insert this.
Yeah.
And I always liked this because it showed the whole idea of her just kind of getting chased around by one infected. It showed how dangerous just one of them is. You know what I mean?
Especially if you're unarmed.
Yeah, just a reminder to like a regular person who's unarmed, that just one of them would be a really big problem. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, this bird. I wanted to get a shot of this bird landing, and every time I try to get the bird to land on the ground, it would just die. So you'll see a cut here where it's flying and then it cuts and it's on the ground, because it would just hit the ground and die.
Well, they are seagulls, so
yeah. And you'll notice throughout this whole scene where water from the ocean like clips through the ground, because again, there was never supposed to be an island here. This is modded. And so some, like right there in the back, you'll see the water go through the sand. I guess you could argue, well, it's like the tides or something, but I try to calm down the waters in the game, but I couldn't find a mod that would make the water not as, like, big. So, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. And what I do like about this scene, it's a close little detail, is how Maya's hair gets long and it gets, like, rugged and unkept and stuff.
For what it's worth, all of the elements that you mentioned of the mod, just of like the tides and the waves coming over the land, that never took me out of the scene. I was still completely invested into the scene, and it's little things like that the audience doesn't tend to notice, because they are, well, when you're telling a good story, that's what the audience's attention is on. So any minor any technical limitations, they're willing to either let them slide or they don't notice them.
I definitely didn't notice some of these things myself. Like
that's why we have a director commentary.
So
I'm glad. That was my intention. So that this little rope right here that I have connected to the two trees, this is really the first time where I was able to figure out how to not only spawn in objects, but where I was able to like float them up in the air and spawn them in specific spots. So that was the first time I was able to do that. I did it a little bit in episode 7 when they have like this tree is popping in and out again. In episode 7 when I was spawning in like objects in like that computer room and stuff, but I didn't know you could actually change like the position or have them like how to clip or not clip through things and have them stay there. Because believe it or not, each object in the game has gravity attached to it, so you have to put on like a freeze option for it to stay in place. So, but after figuring that, I was like, ooh, I can really take advantage of this object spawning now, and you'll see it a lot later, and especially when I go all out, the osmosis device. I'll talk about that later, but yeah. I like to think a lot of this stuff that's in, I didn't really explain it, but I just, hopefully the audience assumes all this stuff you see in here is just shit that washed ashore that Maya found, including the knife. So,
yeah.
I guess that's the unofficial canon. I think the whole inspiration for this scene, though, was from Castaway with Tom Hanks.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, I see the parallels.
Oh, that sunset's beautiful. That's another great thing about mods is you can set the time of day and pause the time of day. You can change the weather. Literally whatever you want. It's great. I was having, like, it gives you so much creative freedom. It was so fun.
You know, I think I might have just remembered where the initial inspiration came from for us to write this scene. Do you recall that there was a lot of like Minecraft videos we used to do back in the day on old Xbox? We did a Lost Island series.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of that, someone in the game with us, it might have been Ghost or someone like that, they had a skin on with a beard, and we were jokingly calling him Tom Hanks, and we were saying that we've crashed on an island here. And I think it was after that you and me were like, we could have someone like crash on an island in ZAR.
Yeah. Lost Island, that takes me back, man. I think we came up with that during Legacies, but obviously Legacies we were filming on a console, so we had no way of filming that. I think our original plan was we were going to use like this tiny little island in the game, and then have Maya be on there with the infected. I'm like, that makes no sense, because you're telling me in like a 50 square foot island she's being chased by a zombie for almost a year or over a year or whatever. That's no, she would never be able to sleep. I think we just sort of implied that was her backstory, but it's really good that we actually get to physically see it, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I like how it all came out despite some of the finickiness with the island itself, the modded island, and I remember this scene here, Scourge, when Miles talking about her backstory and stuff, of like her parents and things. I remember you single-handedly wrote that part, and then thankfully I kept some of those cliff notes you had, and I kept them, and then I was able to implement them into this scene here. So some little things that, you know, Scourge will set me. Sometimes I'm able to save them, sometimes I can't. This was one where I was able to. And this is also the one where I had a lot of fun, like, modifying, like, how characters looked and stuff. So, like, Maya's hair in this is modded. In the previous scene, it was modded. And I'm glad I was able to figure out how to mod hair and stuff. I don't know. I'm a big, like, hair guy. I think, like, a character's hair tells you a lot about them. And plus, people picked up on it pretty fast. But, yeah, the inspiration for how Maya looks is Black Widow. That's fairly obvious. I don't care, it looks cool. But I think, yeah, so we talked about the Xander, Kurt, and Zeke scene. Scourge basically had the idea, loved it a lot. Yeah, this whole party scene is one of my favorites in the whole show that we talked about. This filming of Jake being murdered, I think I went a little overboard. I was like, not only is he going to be punched by Omegas, he's going to get fucking burned to death and stomped on, all these things. And then I was like, oh wait, Josh, isn't he supposed to be alive after this? And then I remember I was like panicking. I was like, Scourge, I don't know what to do. We didn't plan this. How's he alive? Ah!
You messaged me, like, I watched the episode, and then you messaged me and you were like, hey, can you, like, help me figure out how Jake survived that? I was like, wait, what?
Oh, man. Yeah. Maybe it would have been smarter to have, like, the Omegas walk toward Jake, and then it cuts away. You just hear him screaming over the phone, but I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm a morbid guy.
I think you just wanted to be very direct. You wanted it to be like, we see him die, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And Xander's the type of person where, you know, he's sadistic as hell. That is engaging in every sick, twisted, sadistic desire to just make Jake suffer.
He's been looking to that all series.
Yes. And what we see lives up to that. This, I believe, if we had just cut away, or if you just cut away to Jake screaming, it wouldn't have had as big of an impact, I find.
Especially that shot. Goodness.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think. So the whole time, that was a clone, and the clone was willingly wanting to, like, sacrifice itself. You know, it has, like, feelings and the memories and everything of Jake, and it's like, all right, but I still have to do this shit? I was spawned just to die.
Yeah.
I think the Jake clone understood exactly what it needed to do. And it had, like Jake, like Jake Prime, the clone had absolutely zero hesitation going into a situation where he may not come back.
Yeah.
Because that is the sort of person that Jake is.
Yeah. And I think, Ed, it was actually your idea that Xander, I guess, I mean, he sort of hints later on that he didn't go all out, actually, but I think you wanted the idea of Xander going all out in this scene. Like, 100% of my full power!
Yes, I did ad-lib that scene, and I offered it to you. I said, you know, you don't have to use this, but this is the chance that he's had. He is getting a chance that he's getting to do something that he's wanted to do since the very beginning. He wanted to kill Jake Stone. And why not have him go completely all out just to show that, you know,
that nail in the coffin, you know?
Yeah, it was that nail in the coffin.
Mm-hmm.
That he is done messing around.
Yeah.
He's done messing around. It is futile to try and resist against him. Anything you do will be pointless, and I'm going to show the world. I'm going to show the world this example.
That camera, that security camera in that room Justin's in, I actually had to spawn in and use so that way they could keep an eye on him. And I'm like, man, I wish I found that during episode 6 when Gordon's spying on Alex. Ah!
Yeah.
Damn it! But
there is some more stuff I'd like to discuss about the clone, but I'm wondering if we should wait until we get further into the episode 10 discussion.
I think we get further into that. We should. Okay. But yeah, I like to imagine in my personal headcanon when Xander kind of went all out, he not only obliterated Jake, obviously, but he obliterated the Omegas, the Berserkers, the zombies, and the entire room he was in. And then, like, when the dust settles, he's like, oh crap, I just murdered a bunch of my own followers. And he destroyed that entire facility he was in. Crap.
Yeah. Oh shit, I just killed a room full of my own subordinates. Damn, well, I can always make more.
I would love to just, like, imagine Jake is just listening to this, you know, in the other part of Los Angeles, laughing his ass off, being like, what an idiot! He just killed a bunch of his own people to make a point! Oh, man. Because, yeah, Xander is a bit hot-headed because he is young and very powerful, but I think Jake kind of knew that was going to happen. He has a contingency for everything. Just like Kurt. So, episode 10, the finale. Oh boy. So why did this take me 3 years to make? Well, here we go. So, sort of the gist of it was, obviously, it's the biggest in scope. The most stuff happens in this episode, obviously. And just about every single scene, there's a lot going on in grand scale wise, which I always envisioned I wanted for the finale. So, way before this, we scrapped the alternative endings idea, but this was the episode I was most looking forward to making myself, most anticipating, and also the most nervous to make. Because I think I've told y'all, the 3 key parts to any story is how it starts, where it goes, and then how it ends. Especially how it ends. If it ends poorly, no one's gonna watch it ever again. Ever. So you have to end it with a bang, for sure. So, and I had a pretty solid idea of where the episode was gonna go, and I think just about everyone saw what I was going for, including you, Scourge. That's why I think, looking back on it, there weren't really that, aside from the Jake clone stuff, which we'll get to, there weren't really a whole lot of rewrites, were there? No. You modified some Scourge lines, or some Carter lines, that's about it.
Yeah, there was some additional stuff we squeezed in for each character. We gave some extra stuff to Gordon. I threw in some extra stuff for Carter. But really, the only reason I was doing that, and I was suggesting it to you, because I felt that there were always these little story beats that we had always intended to get to or hinted at. And I thought, we're literally never going to get a chance to cover this stuff again. This is the end now. Mm-hmm. This is the finale. So I was like, we might as well just put it all in the episode. Everything that we've ever wanted to show, just put it in. So... Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was always our plan, was like any scrapped ideas that we wanted to include that would have fit within the narrative of the finale, I wanted to put in, for sure. Like Carter talking to his godfather, some more stuff with Meryl and things, stuff with characters, like reconciling, seeing characters use their various abilities in unique ways, like Manny with the tornado, Carter running on water, stuff like that. I wanted to make sure that every single character got their well due in this finale. And that was a big thing for me, was I wanted to make it seem as if you scrap out even a single person in this finale, they probably would have lost, or it would have made things significantly more difficult. Like, you take out Catherine, what happens? Well, she can't drive James in her car with his Peacemaker suit to get to Charlene, including it was her idea to use those cryo freezing weapons against the Omegas for Alex to get the finishing blow on them. Charlene, if you got her out, she wouldn't have fought off that berserker that was about to kill James and Maya, or James and Catherine.
You cut Charlene out, they lose half their intel as well.
Exactly, yeah. That was a big thing for me, is you cut out one person and then you would be like, yeah, I could see how that story would be drastically different, and I can't fathom how they possibly could have gotten out of that. So that was really important for me. So unlike in previous episodes where I made it when I was writing the script, that what I was putting on paper, I wanted to make sure was feasible in the game. So some previous episodes, I kind of play it safe. So in episode 9, for instance, that whole Omega fight towards the end, I actually never planned on that being on the island. I just imagined they were finding it somewhere in the base map. Seriously. It wasn't until that I was able to get that mod to work that I decided, oh, okay, I'll just have them fight there. That's kind of cool. In fact, in the script, when they're on that little speedboat, driving to the island, and Carter's talking to Manny and Jake, originally they were supposed to be driving in a car, but I put them on the boat instead. So I kept it kind of vague like that. I still didn't know where they were going to fight at the time when I was writing the script. I didn't think it was going to be on the island, but, because I kept it kind of vague, I made it work. I think there was like one part in the script where they were like, oh, they punch the Omega and it flies into a building and the building like crashes. But thankfully the island has buildings on it. I got lucky there. I didn't want to run into that issue with this episode. I wanted to be like, okay, I need to know exactly when and where this is happening in every single scene. And before I start even writing the script, I need to make sure that what I want to happen in the finale is physically possible in the game. Because if it's not, and I put it in the script, and it's important to the script, I'm screwed. And I didn't want to go into that filming this. So the entire first year, well, after episode 9, because I took a lot out of me, I took like a couple weeks off. I just wanted to get a mental break. I was like, all right, let's get into the finale. This is it. No more delaying the inevitable. What I did was I wrote the script and I went into the game simultaneously. So like a lot of mods I had to make sure were possible at the time. And that's not just including like locations I could film in, but this was also just how characters would look. Because I wanted, to change some things. Certain vehicles that I wanted to spawn in would work. And, I could operate them properly. And various things like that. I mean, even when I went all out, I went all out. Like these locations of like this foliage and these destroyed cars and stuff. I came across those mods several months before I started filming the finale and thinking, man, that's so cool. It just shows like the sheer devastation and how serious this whole thing is. Because Xander's winning. If you look at this like destroyed city and stuff, humanity is losing the fight. I love this. Like that foliage all over the urban area that kind of reminds me of the stuff from like The Last of Us or really any zombie game that takes place in an urban area. I've always loved that, how that stuff, like I Am Legend, how that foliage looks in that urban area. And I'm so happy I got those mods to work. But every time I filmed in that scene, not only whenever you select the mod, it's sort of called like a space location mod or whatever. It has to load in all the objects, all the tessellation, everything. So when you select the mod, it takes like 5 minutes to load because there's so much stuff there. And when you record the Rockstar Editor clip in the game, it can take a huge chunk on your hard drive. And the more intense like the scene is, the Rockstar Editor has limitations. I think I said before, like the most it'll record is like 1 to 2 minutes per clip. When I was in those like destroyed foliage locations and stuff, it would maybe record like 20 seconds a clip. Because the Rockstar editor was like, "Why are you doing? I'm being choked." Ugh.
Yeah, you were showing me some of these map mods and so on, and with the amount of stuff that was in, I was just looking like, man, your poor PC. Your PC has to handle all this stress. It's painful just to look at, but you pulled it off.
And then when I showed you some of these screenshots, I think you said, "Yo, I think you're legitimately blown away." And you said, "If you can get this in the episode, that'd be the coolest thing ever."
And you did, man. You actually did it. I didn't think it would be possible. I really, at that time, I thought it's going to be too system intensive. It's going to be too much stress, too much huge file sizes, but somehow it worked. You pulled it off.
You know what I actually did before the finale is I upgraded my PC. I got way more RAM. I got like 120 something gigs of RAM. I upgraded the processor, and I also got a big fat, I mean fat, it's huge, GPU. I wish I could show y'all, but it's the 3090 Ti. It's a fat boy. The FTW3 has 3 fans under it, and it's huge. I think it's like 4 inches thick from top to bottom, 4 or 5 inches thick. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'm glad I got it because it was being worked overtime. It was like, oh my gosh. Ah!
Stop, please. I'm suffering.
I'm being choked. But it's somehow, I mean, What's crazy is I don't even think it was a matter of my PC not having the ability to get it done. It's the game. Because the game's engine, you have to bear in mind, is at this point over 10 years old, right? Having all of these resources and stuff being thrown into the game, it's a limitation of the game's engine, not necessarily your computer. So all those crashes and stuff, the game crashes I was talking about, that's the limitation of the game's engine, not necessarily the specs on your computer. Yes, it's hard for your computer to render stuff in 4K and all that and all those things, but the game's engine was not designed to handle all of these resources being thrown at it. So that was a constant struggle in this finale. But like I said before, even as I was running the script, I had to make sure everything I wanted to do would be possible. So this included, like, I would write one scene and I knew if it would require a lot of mods, I would first go into the game, install the mod, make sure, okay, is this possible? Like, a big one that I love so much is that building that's collapsed onto the other building. I had to make sure that filming that was possible. When it was, I said, all right, I'm going to implement that. Or I'm going to film a scene around that. Or, like, you know, the ending shootout in part 1 with all those destroyed cars and everywhere in downtown. I first had to make sure, is this possible? So I would first make sure it's possible, write it. Is this what I want? Is it possible? Yes, okay, cool, write it. Is this possible? No? Okay, tweak the script to make sure that this happens. Because I didn't want to run into any, like, gotchas while I'm filming it. That would have sucked. So, planning. That was planning and writing. That was a sin. And also, building the osmosis device. Holy shit, y'all. And I'll just talk about it real quick because this was a huge part of my pre-planning for this whole finale. So I talked about it before, but getting the various, like, objects to spawn and stuff. And what I had to do was spend probably a significant amount of time finding, like, the right objects I wanted to spawn in and stuff. A lot of these objects you see here are actually racing tracks in game. So, like, these giant side pieces that you see here, they look like hamster wheels when you flip them on the side. That's because they're like those giant loop things for those racing tracks in the game. These black pipes that you see here, those are racing tubes that I flipped around. Those little, like, things at the top of the black pipes that look like the Jetsons, that really old cartoon with those tall beams, sky beams that kind of look like those. That's what I was inspired making by.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Going way back. Putting in cranes because I wanted to emphasize, like, it's pretty much done, but they're putting the finishing touches on it. Like, I wanted to emphasize, like, it's being constructed and stuff. And then, but those are as tall as the cranes can get in the game, so I had to put them at the bottom.
I see.
The centerpiece, the center pipe that looks clear, you know, again, a racing tube with, like, the rotating like rings inside of them. When you're driving through them, you have to, like, avoid and veer around and stuff. A lot of these are racing parts just flipped around. The base, like, foundation on what they stand on, that was also like a racing track, and I liked how it looked because they have, like, these LED lights on them, and then when you put them together, there's, like, all these cool little LED lights throughout the surface of it. So, but I think when you watch part 2 and part 3, you'll probably notice, like, these center pipes that you can see through. There's some of them might light up a bunch of different colors, and that's because they're taken from those racing tracks where I was talking about. I guess they wanted to make it look more fun and cool by adding all the RGB stuff in them. I was trying to figure out a way to turn that off, but I couldn't. I just said, fuck, I'll just leave it. It's fine, I guess. Whatever. The various little objects, I wanted to, like, fill it up, you know? I didn't want it to look blank, so I added in, like, these radio antennas, like these machine parts, these pipes, shit like that. And I think they looked best being on the edge, because if they were like scattered throughout the middle area, I think they would have like gotten in the way as the enhanced are fighting and stuff. So I wanted to keep that out of the way. But something really important to me was the centerpiece, like the center pit, because I knew I envisioned a long time ago where they would push Xander in like down into something, and that was a big crucial part of it, was the centerpiece. And then also the console on this side of it, because it's a giant machine. How are you going to operate it? And I think the design overall was inspired by a few things, but also I had to manipulate it with how, what objects I could and couldn't spawn in the game. A couple of ideas I had for it was, do y'all remember in Mass Effect 3, they're putting together this thing called the Crucible?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do not.
So
I'm gonna have to Google this.
the ending of Mass Effect
Yes.
3 is terrible, but that whole machine that Shepard walks towards, you see these two giant pieces on one side, and in the middle is like this beam that shoots up that also has a pit that one of the options is you could jump down into the pit, or you could go off to one of the sides. As much as I hate that ending, I did like how that machine looked, and so that was kind of an inspiration for it. Another inspiration for it was, I forgot what it was called, but at the ending of Gears of War 3, when Marcus's father creates that giant machine to take out all the locusts, and how it also shoots up a sky beam into the air, and it's like this huge machine-looking thing. That was also a inspiration for it. But I just like the idea of it being like somewhat symmetrical. I mean, but really huge. And so you have these two side pieces, and then one in the middle that sticks up far into the air. I think that was always my original, and then with the central pit at the bottom. That was always my original vision for it. But then with this ramp leading up to it, it's slightly like bumpy and curved, because that was the only like ramp I could find in the game, and there's no like smooth ramp that you can just conjoin going all the way up, so that was the only one I could find. But on top of that too, I somewhat wanted it to look like an oil rig. I mean, it kind of makes sense because it's sitting out in the ocean, but I knew early on if I wanted to make it this scale, that's where I would have to put it, is off the map. Because it was on the map, it would take up way too much space. I would have to, worry about the ground textures being up and down. I wanted a flat surface. And I didn't think there was a space in the map big enough for me to do that, so I said, fuck it, I'll put it on the water. But yeah, that's how the osmosis device came to be. And this took me many months to make. Many months. They would spawn in an object, I would have to move it around, size it up and stuff. And I'm happy with it came out. The only thing that kind of bothers me with it, I think some people already noticed it, like if you watch some of the ground here, see how like the texture kind of like glitches a bit? That's because the game does not like when you clip objects through each other. And I didn't see it while I was filming it, which is annoying. But when I went into the Rockstar editor to change the camera shots and stuff, that's when I noticed all the texture is like glitching and freaking out and stuff. But nothing I can really do about that. Too late.
No,
Yeah.
it's texture clash when you have two textures on
One
on a-
plane.
on the same plane.
Yeah.
They are going to clash for which is visible.
Yep.
It you can change it. It can be fixed by moving what one of the surfaces, like
Mm.
you can move it down, like just by like
Just a pixel.
a billion.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still-
Yeah. Really bad
Still-
there, but
yeah, but it's honestly just like the technical limitations of the island in the intro to episode 9, that did not take me out of the story.
I'm glad.
Hmm.
So like a lot of these pieces you see here are like oddly shaped. There's like triangles. There's ones that have like a straight line on one side, but looped on the other side. And so I kind of had to literally put them together like a complicated jigsaw puzzle. And I wanted the overall shape of the ground to be like a giant square with a circle in the middle. And so that's a big reason why like there's these odd lines everywhere, because I'm meshing all of these ground or these giant like textures and putting them together and making it so that the whole ground area is a square shape, and as it leads up to the middle of the ground, there's a giant like circle in the middle of it. I had to do quite a bit of like finicking around with these shapes and sizes and whatnot to get it to work. And it took me months to do, but I knew that was important, that before I would even get to this part in the script was, you know, a big chunk of this is going to be at the osmosis device, you know, where they're going to have the final showdown. So I knew that the whole area they fight in had to be huge. They need to have stuff to do on it. And the way in which I want the story to go, I have to make sure it's even possible in the game before I film it. Thankfully it was. Holy crap, I'm so happy with that. And I am happy with how it came out.
The only question that remains now that we've actually seen the osmosis device finally is where the hell or how the hell was Carter even planning on building this thing? Like, what the fuck?
He's like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
The way I see it, the platform itself, that's not the device. The osmosis device is like somewhere in one of the towers, which is spreading the procasium.
Yeah. You could argue that, and like you have to have all these like other components to it just to hold it up. So
yeah. It could also just be to do with the scale of which Xander is trying to affect the world, you know.
Right.
That's true.
Because this is a world-changing device, originally designed to extinguish procasium across the globe. But then if you manipulate it, it can do the exact opposite, or it can do, you know, other things like Carter wanted, make everyone enhanced. So if it's a global thing, I imagine it has to be pretty big. It can't be a little thing that fits in the back of a van.
No.
But man, Scourge, I remember years ago when we were talking about how what should it look like, how big should it be, and one idea we had early on was maybe Jake and Carter are in like this car, and maybe we can make it work on like some type of racetrack thing where they get onto like this, you know, racetrack and they drive up to the device as they're dodging meteors and stuff or whatever. But then we were just like, I don't know though, because we wanted the device to be a physical stand-in thing, but how is this going to work if we have to spawn in like a racetrack? It's going to look silly. I think we were just sort of like, we'll figure it out when we get to it, sort of idea.
Pretty much, yeah. It was sort of like you mentioned about the idea of having a pit or some kind of, like, you know, relief in it that allows Xander to fall down. That was that was an extremely long time ago that we thought of that. I remember we had big conversations about the idea that we wanted Xander to go out by like falling into something. Somehow everybody pushes him in or something. But so it had to be very specific. It had to be, this whole thing had to be down to specification, and the fact that you managed to make it work is truly amazing.
After I finished it, which took months and months and months, then I was able to finish running up the script. So I finished running up the scripts, which was the longest one ever. Ed can attest to that.
Yep.
And I think there was, how long was it? Probably before I sent it to Scourge, because I think it was important to me that like we wanted it to be as good as possible. I think after his revisions, it was somewhere in the ballpark of 180 something pages. It was huge.
Yes.
And just for context, the script for episode 9 was like 70 pages. This was 180 something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know, when you're wrapping up a story of this scale, you can only do it once. So you got a lot to do. I mean, you got a lot to wrap up. But thankfully, you know, like I said before, a lot of this was like preconceived ideas throughout the years. Even as I was filming like previous episodes, I was all, or like, you know, just in my downtime, I'd be daydreaming about stuff that might happen throughout the finale. Because the finale, it's always leading up to it. Like what can we do? What can we not do? And like stuff I thought would be so cool to happen. We'll get to it later, but like how exactly Xander should die or who should get the finishing blow. We'll get to that because we had like literally a billion different ideas for that. We wanted him to fall into something, but we didn't know how. So, but we'll get to that. But the whole idea for how this episode should start with like this panning and stuff. I talked a little bit about this when we were doing because we live streamed our reactions with me and my friends watching it for the first time. So we talked about it a little bit, and if y'all haven't seen those, we'll talk a bit more about it here. But when I initially was writing the script, because I wanted it to be as good as possible, and I wanted to get the most emotional performance out of my cast, I wrote the script as a novel. Because in previous scripts, it was just, all right, this is what happens, character says this line, and this happens, character says this line. But instead, for this script, I wrote it like a novel. Like literally for this scene, because again, this was years and years of me, you know, having these preconceived ideas on what's going to happen, years and years of building up to it, and implementing all these ideas into it. Was I almost knew exactly what shot I wanted for every single scene, just about, and I would implement that into the script, and then literally for this opening scene, after the osmosis device turns on, I wrote, "The end has come." Y'all remember that?
I remember that. I noticed that, and I was like, "Oh man, Josh is not. He's not mincing words here. This is going to be special."
It's the end.
Scourge, I remember, I think when I sent you the first draft of the script, you were like, wait, Xander turns on the device immediately? Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I honestly, I thought we were going to like build towards it in the very end, but I think having it turn on that early just added more urgency to the whole situation, you know?
Mm-hmm. That was the idea, was they constantly have to keep moving. Get closer, push, get to it. That way the audience also knows that every single passing minute, people around the world are getting infected. So they have to keep moving. The whole inspiration for this opening, I mean, it's pretty obvious to those of y'all that have seen it, was the intro to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Similar shots, almost the same sound effects, and I wanted just to start off this way, to set the stakes immediately. Like, we're not playing games, this is it. We're setting the stakes immediately. I love how there's no dialogue. It's just Xander looking at the device, turns on, and then the screen's engulfed, and we just see the intros. Years and years of preconceived ideas finally coming together. So, and again, I had to build the device first, then write the script, then film it. So, that's why building it early on was one of the most important things, because you have to make sure that what you want to happen in your story is possible in the game before you start filming, because once you start filming, you're kind of stuck. And then this whole thing with Manny looking off into the distance, that's also, again, inspired by the intro to Deathly Hallows Part 2, when Snape is looking at Voldemort's forces coming into Hogwarts, and he's looking at them all guilty and stuff. That was sort of the implication here, was Manny sees the device activates, and he looks down in shame. And people didn't pick up on it, but this is because the amount of guilt he must feel on his shoulders right now, like, this is my son. I failed him. All of this is my fault. It's probably what he's feeling right now. So I think after you understand the big reveal of the lineage, that this hits so much harder. So
that is the face of a man who feels that he has failed not only himself, his son, but he's also failed the world.
Yeah. Poor guy. No one could catch a break in this show. No.
Yeah.
A small little attention to detail we did, but for every single start of the episode, where you like previously on whatever, every single episode is the previously on GTA 5 on Tech Revelations. That's voiced by a different character. So if you go back and watch the show, I think that's a little thing y'all will have picked up on. This one's is voiced by Jake. Previous one, I can't remember. I think it was Maya or Catherine someone, etc. So if you watch the show again, you'll see how the previously on was voiced by somebody else, because that was important to me for ZER, was to have a very character-driven story. So that's the reason we did that. I think in Legacies or in Series 3 or something, it was always me that did previously on. But I want it to be, this show ain't just about me, it's about the cast and everybody involved. So at this whole introductory scene here where Xander's sort of like talking, and then as it cuts to way to town, you can hear like over the speakers and stuff. A lot of this was inspired actually by World War II era, because if y'all didn't know, when Hitler invaded Poland back in World War II, after he succeeded in invading Poland, he was like talking over the intercom to the Polish about, like, the gist of it was, I'm in charge now, get over it. That's kind of what the gist of it was. And all these people, like being moved away, and then the infected are just mowing them down. Again, referencing the war crimes that happened during World War II. A big inspiration for that was this. And speaking of World War II, a big inspiration for Xander's speech was, not only did I want the episode to start with, the stakes being set and everything, but because I knew this is the last time that Ed would get to voice his character, and I wanted to give him a lot to do, and I wanted him to get this big monologue at the start to show that the enemy, the bad guys, are winning right now, and Xander knows that. And inspiration for the speech itself, and I think you picked up on it, was the introduction scene from the film Inglourious Bastards.
Yep. I saw the opening monologue and I was like, oh, wait, is this? No. Oh, well, if he's going for Inglourious Bastards is what he's going to get.
I remember you wanted to ad-lib the bubonic plague into this, right?
Yes, there was a part. In the original script, there was a part where Xander, compares humanity to rats. We don't know why rats are so reviled, but Xander's a genius. He's probably studied history. He would probably know that rats carry disease and brought about the bubonic plague in the Middle Ages. So that's why we exterminate rats. And I remember talking about this during the commentary, but I also ad-libbed that to also drive home the metaphor that he is comparing himself and the infected to the cure, the cure to the bubonic plague that is humanity.
I think that was a really nice touch.
And I think another sort of way I interweaved this too was, remember, have y'all seen the first Matrix film?
Yep.
Remember that scene where Agent Smith is talking to Morpheus? He's like, I must get out of here. I must get free. And he's talking to Morpheus and he's like, see, we are humanity is a disease and we are the cure. I loved that line, so I used that for this whole scene where Xander's telling humanity, like, I'm the cure, y'all are the disease, not the other way around. it shows like his twisted worldview and why even though what he's doing is evil, no doubt about it, he thinks it's not, because he thinks humanity's evil. It tries to justify his reasoning for it. So, but that's the whole kind of caveat twist to that. But then, I'm not gonna lie, even filming some of these scenes at the time, I was like, good lord, this is really dark.
It's some of the most dark stuff that's been in it for sure.
I remember when I was recording the opening monologue, it took me over an hour to record the whole thing because I would stumble over lines, I would accidental spoonerisms, typical flubs. And I've recorded the monologue so many times and stitched various pieces together that I think I can recite the whole thing off by heart at this point.
I remember this whole scene with the zombies invading and stuff. I thought about using the mod to turn off all the lights in the city, but if I did that, it would have also turned the lights off on the vehicles, and it just didn't look right with them moving around and stuff, so I decided to leave them on, and then in the next scene, you would see all the lights turned off. So, if you're all wondering. Same with the flashlights and the guns, because if you turn off all of the lights in the game, that includes the guns. And I love the image of having the lights pointed at the people like that, because it's hard to see like their expression if you can't see anything. So, and all of this stuff here, because obviously you don't see the device in its entirety until part 2. And even at the very intro of part 1, it's literally very, very dark, so you can't quite see what it looks like. And so throughout part 1, even part 2, up until the reveal, you really don't see it. In fact, you can't even really tell what Xander is standing on, but that's the whole point. And then actually, that scene with all those corpses on the ground, that was actually a lot more difficult than it needed to be, because at the time when I was filming this, I allowed the NPCs to spawn in, and I wanted them to be in close proximity to each other. But again, because of the game's limitations, the corpses kept despawning. So what did I do? Well, I actually spawned in a bunch of random NPCs myself, and I made it so that they wouldn't run away screaming as I shoot, because then they'd be scattered all over, and then it'd be a pain to, they'll all be spread out, and I wanted them clustered together. So I spawned in a bunch of NPCs. I turn on the mod where people don't get scared of you. It's like the ignore mod or something like that with menu. It's one of the options, and I spawn them all together, and I mowed them down with a minigun. And as I was filming this, I was like, good lord, I feel kind of bad right now. Goodness. Again, this is inspired by World War II, where literally Germans would rack up all these corpses and throw them together and throw them into pits and stuff. But, like, it sounds dark, but I think a big theme of the finale is how bad and how brutal war is. I think you can interpret the finale in a lot of different ways, but anti-war is definitely one of them, I think. Yeah, so this scene here, I always wanted, like, the idea of Jake leaving, like, a final message for humanity, because he knew he was going to die, but he wanted to leave them with, like, a little glimmer of hope, essentially. And so, in a very morbid way, Xander's like, go ahead and play it. I don't care. He's already dead. Fuck it. But, that was always the intention, was Jake would leave behind a message for humanity to inspire people after they learn that he died. And that would piss them off, push them over the edge, having no fear to take the fight to Xander. So, and you hear it throughout, like, this audio recording, throughout the scene over these speakers throughout town. You'll notice, too, there's no longer, like, destroyed cars and stuff, and now it's, like, the sunrise time. Just to emphasize, like, there's still some hope, because what we just watched was pretty dark and depressing. Let's lift things up just a little bit. So, And then this whole scene here, this actually took me a couple times to do, because the first time I filmed it, I have no idea how, but all the clips I recorded for it disappeared. I went through the entirety filming of part 1, and then when it came time to film this scene, they were just missing. To this day, I could not tell you what happened. So this was actually the last scene I had to film for part 1. I don't know.
Huh.
Maybe the game just didn't agree with me spawning in all these vehicles and shit. It just didn't want me to do that, but I said, damn it, no, I'm doing it. And I didn't want to just reuse like the intro yet again. I want it to be something a bit more elevated, more special. I do love that intro Scourge made, but I wanted something different. Because if you watch the last episode in any season, sometimes we use the intro, sometimes we don't. And on top of that too, we changed the music around too. I think my initial idea was to have like the music in every finale prior was like this, loud rock song, like, oh yeah, let's kick some ass. But it just didn't feel right this time, because it's the last bit we're ever going to see. This is it. And I want it to be more bittersweet. And I remember watching the James Bond film No Time to Die and loving the No Time to Die scene, and I'm like, why does this just fit so well with, Jake being dead, but he's not really dead, no time to die? Or like with humanity, like, we don't have time for this, we gotta push at it and stuff, and then we're probably gonna die, but fuck it, let's go out with a bang. And something more, like I said, bittersweet. So I found this cover version of it, and I'm like, this fits so well, so well. And I think I ran the idea by both you, Scourge, and Ed. I'm like, what do y'all think? Does this fit? And y'all loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely fits. I think one of the things that a friend of mine said upon viewing part 1 of episode 10 was that he said that because there are these very long shots in part 10, I've noticed. There's all these very long panning shots, lots of drawn out stuff. But he said that it made him feel like he was sort of like floating. He said it's the only episode in ZAR where it felt like he was like in limbo watching it all happen. And he said it made him feel like unsettled in a way. You know what I mean? There was a sense of unease from watching it. Like he was like a ghost viewing it all almost. He said it was very surreal to him. And I don't know if that was the intention, but that was one of the results I heard. So
I never heard of that. That's pretty cool.
I was like, wow.
I mean, by this point, I think I was most comfortable with the mods and stuff, and figuring out by this point, I had figured out how these various systems work. And when you get comfortable with something, then I think the result's always going to turn out better. But you always want to excel yourself, challenge yourself, make it way better than before. And so, in looking back on, rewatching previous episodes, there's like a lot of quick cuts. Like, as much as I enjoy episode 5's fight, way too many damn cuts. And so I wanted it to be way, like, I wanted it to, the audience to soak in everything that's happening. And so right off the bat, I had a lot of fans and friends ask me if I could have the finale be in 4K. So to this point, they're only in 1080p. I'm like, hey, you only get to film the finale once, but if you do it right, once is enough. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I bumped the resolution in-game up to 4K, and it still ran great. Obviously it's over a 10-year-old game, so I would imagine it should run pretty well, but that ate up my hard drive space like crazy. And also the other thing I did was I filmed it ultra wide, which basically means if you watch it on YouTube or your TV or anywhere else, you're going to see it be a lot more wider in scope, way more cinematic and like stretched out, because that's how most like cinematic films are made, is they film in that 21:9:19 ratio where it's like stretched out from side to side. And I wanted to do that to, have the audience soak in all of that stuff. I think maybe the wider aspect ratio plus the, really enhanced resolution. I think maybe that's how your friend said he felt like he was floating. Because I think I sort of get that when I watch an IMAX movie, where it feels like you're in the screen almost.
Yeah.
I think that's probably your friend was going with. That's kind of cool. I haven't heard of that, but that's nice.
I thought it'd be cool to bring it up here, yeah. But then I'd say overall the whole, us watching it when we did the reaction as well, the live debut reaction, this whole thing was very strange and surreal to, I think, to the both of us, because like this is the very end. So I think that was the main takeaway from these episodes, especially part one, because part one felt very grim. I think in part two it started to liven up a little bit again. But part one, there's this very big surreal sense of like it's about to end, but in what way is it going to end? There's a lot of mystery still going on.
Yeah, it was extremely surreal watching it. Time, for sure.
Just getting the fact that you managed to show like all the cars, the devastation and things. We earlier on in ZAR, we'd heard about the nukes dropping and stuff, but we'd never been able to see full on the extent of devastation. So it was just again really nice to finally get to show that.
Yeah, believe me, when I got the mods to work, it felt surreal to me, and filming them in 4K and then having the game crash me and all the things, but I was like, damn it, this is the last time I ever have to do this, and if the game's gonna crash a trillion times, so be it, because I want this on screen, damn it. But yeah, I'm happy those mods were able to get. I think it's even now it's very surreal that we got to work, honestly, with the fact that we did is good stuff. And actually, speaking of which, this whole where we see the devastation and things, and like the camera panning all around, was inspired by the introduction to the film called Elysium with Matt Damon. Great film. I think you also watch it if you haven't. But it sort of starts off in a similar way, where as soon as the movie starts, you just see. The difference, though, in that film is the Earth is overpopulated, so they had to move to space. But on Earth, there's like really bad overpopulation. There's pollution everywhere. It's yucky. There's like slums everywhere. That was the inspiration for this, and I think setting the tone of the episode right away with like, look how bad this is. This sucks. And I love how there's just it's for me a big thing with episode 10 as well was show don't tell, because before it was a lot of telling, like, oh, things in LA are bad and then yada yada. We sort of got glimpses of that in like episode 5 where you see a couple parts of the city on fire and stuff, but not to this extent. That was hugely important to me, was showing the audience that this is bad. And I also want to just utilize some of these opening shots I filmed early on, just to make sure that if I wanted to film in these locations, that it'd be possible. And thankfully, to somewhat extent, yeah, they were. But poor graphics card, though. It hated me so much. Oh, man. And I was also, because like I said before, I wanted to go all out with just about every scene. So even these scenes when characters are just talking, like this one here, to see all these objects and stuff, all these other NPCs, and every single one of them is doing a specific animation, like he's loading up ammunition whenever he's checking on some things. It was important that really this feels like a living, breathing world. And to tell the story right, which was all the military is getting prepared, was to show that, to really immerse you into it. Like, okay, all right, we're getting ready for some battle preparations. Here we go. And it's important that even though it's in the background, you understand what's happening. You know what I mean? think when I wrote this scene in the script, I sort of had this faint idea that that is what will be in the background, but that was important to me, you know, to emphasize that. And what I also found too, you know, by playing around with mods and stuff, is when you spawn in a bunch of objects in an area in the game, you can actually go into that menu mod, and you can save your progress on where you spawn in all these objects, and you can give it a name. So what I did was I just named it like opening battle prep or whatever, so that when I would spawn all these objects, if I had to continue filming where I left off, I could just click that, and then boom, it would spawn in all the objects that I put in, which was really dope. So it saved me a ton of time too. After figuring that out, it saved me a lot. For real. Thank goodness I found that that was a thing, because I didn't even know a while back that that was a thing. So, but yeah, having all the NPCs and having them do various animations and stuff, that was important to me as well. A lot of these first few scenes here was getting some of the characters to interact a lot more with, like, Gordon talking to Steven and, like, having, you know, more like a personal one-on-one kind of thing. Catherine talking to Charlene and try to, you know, comfort themselves. And even James talking to Carter, one of my favorite parts. James talking to Manny. Then trying to, like, reconcile and figuring out, like, you know, things to come and stuff like that. I think that was important to me because these are going to be the last, like, big downtime talks the characters are going to have before they're going to have to say goodbye in part 3. So I think that was pretty important, was, you know, it's the calm before the storm, essentially. And that was important that we have, like, these little one-on-one conversations and stuff. This whole scene with James and Carter, Scourge, I think you actually rewrote a big chunk of Carter's lines for this particular scene, where Carter's talking about his time with Meryl and how he met her and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what prompted me to do it. I think I just wanted, because I hadn't had much hands-on with scripts for quite a while, that I figured, like, we're at the end now. I wanted to throw something in there. And again, it's also down to the fact that there were just lots of little things that I'd always wanted to try and fit in to do with Carter. I figured now's the time to do it. So, and it segued really nice into the scene of Carter talking to his foster father on the phone as well, which again was a scene I think we planned so long ago.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And that was I know Ed's excited to talk about that, but like the old British man voice.
Yeah, that was actually I was inspired by this one British comedian, this one Cockney comedian, Ricky Grover, who voiced a character in one of my favorite games, Dragon Quest VIII. He plays Yangus, a Cockney thief who I basically was playing that. I was replaying Dragon Quest VIII. I started hearing Yangus speak, and I was like, huh, I'm going to have to remember that. I'm going to have to put that in my repository of voices for a future project. And then this comes along, and you offer me the role, and I'm like, oh, great. I have just the voice for this. So, yeah. Carter's adoptive father is basically it's me doing a very poor Ricky Grover impression, isn't
it?
Love that. Yeah, I love how it.
Ricky Grover, if he was in like his 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I know this whole scene, I think you wrote, Scourge, like, years ago, and I think we wanted to put it somewhere earlier in the episode, as well as having Scourge, or having a Carter call Meryl, but him not really talking to her. I know you wanted that to happen, like, a long time ago, and I wanted to implement that, so, I mean, why not in the finale? Like, this is the first time we've seen Carter, like, this emotional, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I know it's always challenging when you're trying to sound really sad, or when you're voicing a line, but I think that was a big thing for me, was like, let's push all of the emotions out of all these characters, you know. But I'm glad how this came out, and I think when you watch, this actually took me a long time to make, because the whole thing, there was a similar thing we saw in episode 9 when Carter was looking at his phone, but for this one, what I had to do was I found a PNG image file for a phone, and then I sort of masked that all over the layer of this phone that he's holding. I had to crop out, like, because the image would go over his thumb, so I'd have to crop out, you know, the part of his thumb and some of the fingers too. And I added the phone number up there, as well as the little calling icon. So this little tiny image that lasted a couple seconds probably took, I don't know, a while. I want to say an hour maybe to put together. Going all out when it doesn't seem like I should, but I wanted to.
Yeah, it's such a far cry from the old days where like the phone would come up and it would just have like some text slapped over the top of it. Like,
oh dear Lord, those were the days, huh? Those were the days. And then I like how this is an idea I just improvised, where Meryl smokes as well, where I guess like she and Carter have that in common. That's how they bonded, over the smoking. Why not?
Yep.
Yeah. And then this whole inspiration, this whole like speech that James gives, I didn't want it to be that cliche. I wanted to sound like, hey, look, I know this sucks, but you know what? Let's go out there and just fucking kill them. We know what we have to do, so let's go fucking do it. And that was really the inspiration for the speech. I think I wrote it a long time ago, but I was like, okay, now I get to implement it. So, and good Lord, spawning in all of these NPCs, watching him. Because I think I told y'all, with that scene director mod, you can only spawn in like 15 to 20 or so NPCs at a time. And if you have to spawn in more than that, well, what you have to do is you have to start removing the NPCs from the list that you spawned in. But thankfully they stay there, unless you literally like delete them from existence. They will stay spawned. But the caveat with that, though, is you can't really do anything with them other than they just stand there. But I found a trick, especially later on when they all start with all these animations and stuff, is what you can do: spawn them in, trigger the animation, remove them from the list of NPCs and scene director, and then you do that in a loop for every single new NPC. It takes a while, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to have this whole audience show that they're all cheering and stuff. Montage of them getting into their vehicles, which wasn't that hard. Just get some shots of them getting into cars and stuff. But the big one here, some of the big shots that people have been asking me for a while, how the fuck did you make these? And what's crazy is, some people, I think even you, Scourge, didn't know this, but none of these vehicles are actually here. So, I talked about it before, but when you're filming stuff in the game, there's only so many things you can spawn in with scene director, and you know, the vehicles, the characters flying the vehicles and stuff. The other challenge is, if you're trying to record the action of what an NPC should do in a jet, it doesn't work. They just crash into the ground whenever you try to play the recording back. And on top of that too, you can't really record them like shooting guns or whatever out of their vehicle. And so what I had to do, fuckload of work, which was film each and every single solitary vehicle and get various shots in a green screen area. There's that mod I was talking about, that green screen mod, where it's like this giant room, this giant green screen room, which you can go back into visual effects and key out the green and stuff. And I would have to do that for every single solitary vehicle. Every single one. So this shot you see here, I would have to record all of them, like flying upward or flying to the side or whatever, flying down, everything, for all the vehicle types too. And I would have to mask those onto the screen, one after another after another. And so once I got all those on there, then I'm gonna go in and I would add like a slight filter to try to blend them into the scene in the background a little bit more. And then I would add the shaking screen effect to it, so that it looks like they're all together. And these scenes alone took many, many hours to render because the amount of vehicles that I had to put on screen at once, layer after layer after layer, literally dozens of them at a time, you can only begin to imagine how long they took to render and how long they took to edit, really. There was probably like 50 plus video tracks in Vegas I had where it was just so many of these vehicles on screen. But that was important to me because I wanted to show like the sheer scale. This is it. They have all of the reinforcements gathered together, and they're gonna all take the fight to Xander. Like, this is it. This is it. And that's also I like the little hint here in this scene when Xander talks about like his father. You have no idea who he's talking about. And then since then, like the months leading up to part 2 and 3, people were like, "Ooh, who's his daddy? Who's he talking about?" The fans theorizing, and I was in the background being like, "He, they have no idea."
Yeah, I think one of the things I might have seen floating around, I don't know if I had it mentioned to me or something, but the consensus I saw was that people thought that Xander's father was just someone we haven't seen yet, because no one could really figure out who it was going to be. There seemed to be no call signs, so I think at least one of the ideas was that it must just be someone with a completely different story that we haven't met yet. So
people thought it was Kurt, which I was kind of vaguely interpreting it as because he showed up in the trailer of episode 10, which I put him in as like a kind of a bait and switch kind of thing to throw the audience off. He does appear, red herring. He kind of appears in the episode, but not in that way. Like, I filmed that scene for the trailer, like, just as a one-off, and I knew it wasn't in the script, but I just wanted to put it in there to try to throw the audience off that yes, Kurt will be in the episode, but in what capacity? And people started theorizing, like, in that introductory scene with all those vehicles being destroyed and stuff, is that Kurt doing that? Or, when Jake rescues everyone by the ending of part 1, people, before it revealed his face, is that Kurt? Like, I think that was important to me because I was worried that if I didn't do that, people were going to too easily predict that, these scenes were with Jake. Like, I guess I was where people were going to assume that that's who it was, But by having, Kurt in the trailer and that throwing everybody off, like, holy crap, what? When you have, like, this, character, you don't know who it is, but they're taking out all the infected, your brain just assumes it's somebody you saw as, like, a reveal in the trailer. That when it's revealed to be Jake, you go, whoa, what? What I thought isn't true. Because I didn't want them to assume who it was. I mean, some people called it, but I think, throwing that curveball was important to me so that people wouldn't just guess right away. So, but this whole scene here, if all the, flying vehicles and stuff, again, using the same method, one vehicle at a time behind the green screen, so much fucking work. You guys have no idea. But with the whole like attack scene inspired by various things, like Independence Day, Star Wars, Mass Effect, a bunch of different things, like a giant army clashing in air and on land and things. That was important to me. Have like the sheer scale of the battle. And then, showing the ground stuff too. And showing how the infected have their vehicles of their own. This whole shot here actually took a while because what I had to do was not just film each vehicle in the green screen, but them shooting. And I said before too, when you're filming vehicles with that scene director, you can't record them shooting. It just doesn't work. So what I had to do was, for every single solitary vehicle, one at a time, I had a green screen for the vehicle itself, and I had a green screen for like the trace of like the bullets shooting past and the missiles. And I had a green screen those out, so crop out the green and then put the trace of the bullets like right by where the vehicle is, and do those for every single vehicle that was shooting. So, and then I added like some like red like, flares and stuff to kind of show like all the the mayhem that they're shooting out and things.
Damn.
This
Such
shot
a
here
pain in
too,
the
same
ass.
thing. And like the real challenge too with these, filming on the green screen and stuff was when a vehicle gets destroyed, sometimes like one little piece of it may like fall out of frame in the green, and I couldn't, and you would see it, right? You would see like the vehicle be almost cropped out, so I had to do some editing trickery with that, where before a vehicle would be cropped out, I had to quickly move it off the screen after it gets destroyed. So yeah. And then this mod right here with this is actually a script, a mod script that I found, where it's called, like, I forgot the name of the mod script, but where you have this huge aerial battle of all these vehicles, flying vehicles that you can fight that are controlled by other NPCs. This is not the same mod as that scene director I was mentioning, but it's a totally different, unique modding script. I'm so happy I found it. I actually had a lot of fun just playing this, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm still recording, I need to calm down. Because like, all of this stuff, I didn't know it was possible after I finished the script. I didn't find this until probably some point filming this attack scene. I'm like, oh, there's gotta be a better way to do this, because I can't film these jets flying by themselves with scene director, but I need like this huge aerial battle. How am I gonna get this to work? And I can't ask the guys to do it on the console again, because that was a pain. What can I do? And then I just came across this, and it worked. And because like if you watch that, and then it cuts to, oh yeah, the flares shooting out of the jets, that's part of that modding script too. And I'm like, yo, that's awesome. I love how this looks. And then it cuts to like these shots here. This is all shot before I knew that modding script with all these jets was even possible. And it sort of intercuts between back and forth. So the only caveat though is you can't film all those jets flying and the ground stuff at the same time. So I had to cut back and forth between those things. So that's why in these shots you're not going to see any jets up in the air, because that just wasn't possible. So, but yeah, I love how the whole battle starts. I love how I got that modding script to work, and just going all out, showing like people parachuting down, driving down into it and things, try to get down there quickly, and because you have to deploy vehicles down there very, very quickly. And it's kind of funny, you don't really see them land, they just kind of cuts away, and I'm like, in hindsight, wouldn't they just like hit the ground and explode? Don't worry about it. Maybe they parachuted down. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Vehicles don't have parachutes in the game, so we're just gonna cut away. It's fine. And then this whole scene with them talking inside the plane. I love how I got this to work, but the problem is I couldn't film this scene while the plane itself was moving. Because if I did, the characters would just fly and hit the back door constantly. So, believe it or not, this whole scene where they're inside the plane was on the ground outside. This is not in the air.
It's probably the best option for it, yeah.
But then later on, when they're jumping out of the plane and stuff, I did some editing tricks, because again, you can't film people inside the plane because they're just going to fly out. So what do? You freeze the plane in place, because there's a mod that you can use for vehicles where you can do just about anything with them. And what I did was I had the plane frozen in place so that it wouldn't move, so that the part where Carter and Manny run out of the plane, it's not moving, it's frozen in place right here. So if you watch closely, you'll notice that the plane is not even moving. So as he jumps down right here, it looks like it is because I made the explosions move to the side, but the plane's not moving. It's frozen in place.
Very good touch. Very nice touch.
Nice.
So, them fighting on the destroyed, mod setting. I don't know. I wanted to utilize all the locations where the mod was working, so I wanted to take advantage of that while I could. But again, good lord, the clips only last like 10 to 20 seconds a pop, so I had to, compile those clips together in a bunch of, sheer recording fashion the amount of clips I had for each part was gargantuan. Goodness. And then really a lot of these jets chase, because I wanted at least one jet chase in the finale, but I'm like, how is this going to work if I can't record the actions of what another jet does? So my best idea was to do it through like various editing tricks. So that if you watch this jet chase here, so that one that is sort of like moving in circular motion, if you don't record the actions of what a NPC does in Scene Director, if you just spawn them into the jet but don't do anything with them, they'll just spin up and down, or like if they rotate it in a circle, kind of like what that one did in episode 6. They just kind of go in a circular motion the whole time. But since I couldn't record the actions of what another jet can do, I was like, okay, I guess through some editing tricks, I'll cut back and forth to imply Gordon's being chased by another jet. That's why you're not going to see a single shot of a jet chasing another jet, per se. But, you know, it's the best I could do. I mean, I think it turned out fine, but it's the best I could do. And I like how we got to this scene with the courtyard, because we saw this in the first trailer for ZAR, and I knew this is the location I wanted to be in, because I was envisioning the final fight would be in downtown itself, so that was essentially a big reason why they are in this particular spot, is because, well, that was in the trailer, so I had to make it work. And then with Charlene showing up later on, sniping down the helicopter, I wanted to give, again, every character the well-due. So Charlene shooting down the helicopter to save James and Maya. I wanted to give each character their paid due, so that by the time, if you cut out any character, the episode would not have gone all that well. So, and I always wanted to envision, like, what would it look like if an enhanced fights in, like, an urban area? You know, they'd be jumping around on top of rooftops like Spider-Man and stuff, and I just thought that idea was cool, and, like, the setting of it and things. We haven't really seen that, because we've always filmed a lot of stuff on consoles previously, so because of that, we're always dealing with the cops and other, you know, pedestrians, traffic, shit like that. But now that we're on PC and we can mod the shit out of it, you can turn all that stuff off, which is great. And up until this point, we never actually seen them fight like this in an urban setting, and it gives you a lot of, you know, creative ideas that you can implement with, like, characters taking cover, what location they could fight and how they fight, stuff like that. So I think it gives you a lot of leeway in terms of what you can and can't do. So, but the jet chase, again, you're not going to see them fighting in the same spot. And then this bit with Justin, because I think originally the plan was to have Justin, he was for the most part going to be, like, not in the finale, but I don't really like that. I wanted to give him more to do. And I liked the idea of, well, what if Xander, you know, not only does he regain control of Justin's mind, but he figures out where he is. And that way it takes him out of being, you know, isolated the entire time, pulls him out of this area, and then he also gets something to do in the finale. It was important to me that he fight with the other characters one last time. I didn't want to just exclude him the whole time, because that would have been kind of lame. You would have literally nothing to do, so I wanted to bring him back. And I also knew at the time that after he leaves the New Horizon base, that we're never going to see it ever again. And I think I wanted to have it so that, you know, not after Xander would find Justin, it makes sense that he would order his infected to just destroy it, because that way they would have nowhere to fall back to. Again, raising the stakes constantly. And so I figured, hey, if I'm not going to film this location ever again, let's blow it the fuck up.
Yeah.
Why not, right?
I for some reason, I feel like that was a last-minute decision. I don't know if I'm remembering wrong, but I think I remember you telling me, like, while you were already filming, that you were, like, writing in that extra anecdote that there's no base to go back to. I feel like that came late, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, though, in the context, because, like, we're not going back to it ever again, you know?
Yeah.
And Xander wants to make it so that they have nowhere to retreat to. So
yeah, so it is a case of, like, even if we fail there's just nothing to go back to. There's nowhere to hide anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad, I found this effect with this bomb and then the explosion and stuff. And I think implementing all that was important to showcase like the sheer scale and destructiveness of what's happening and things. Like that was all really important to show on screen. A lot of like how these fight scenes plan out and stuff is, again, I would write the script and then check the stuff in the game to make sure it's possible. Because by this point, like I was so familiar with the layout of the Los Santos map in GTA 5 that I pretty much knew as I was writing the script in my head, I knew exactly where they were going to be. But I think that was a really crucial thing, was for these fight scenes to play out smoothly, you have to know like exactly where and when they're going to be happening. So that's a crucial part of filming this whole first part. But actually, this particular area, I think I mentioned before, but I was trying to find a good spot for them to fight downtown for this particular scene. But the problem is that, again, when I was recording them shooting their guns, they weren't doing it properly. And I'm like, why? Well, it's because it wasn't until the finale that I realized that in order for the action of them shooting the gun, the bullets have to be impacting something, or it's not going to register the recording. So this whole part when the zombies are shooting up at them right here, see them shooting up, wasn't really working before because they're just shooting up at the air, and the mod can't record those actions. The bullets have to be impacting something. So what I did was I actually spawned in this giant block in the air that you can't see because I changed the camera perspective of it so you can't see it. And I just had them shoot at the block just for long periods of time. That's how I got it to work.
Nice.
I mean, I didn't know that until like literally the finale, and I was like, oh, the bullets have to be impacting something for it to register. You can't just shoot the air. Okay. I was getting really frustrated by that point because it just wasn't working. I'm like, because you have no clue sometimes. Is it the weapon they're using? Is the character glitched? Is it the location they're in? Like, why is it not working? So, bullet has to hit something physically. And the whole Gordon sacrifice thing, Scourge, I think you actually rewrote just about from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean, it was only because I wanted us to try and squeeze in some Eli stuff. It just so happened around the same time I was rewatching that scene in Legacies of Eli discussing Gordon on the rooftop with James, and I just wanted us to really connect to that somehow. So I just thought it would be nice if this would be the moment to finally, cap that story off a little bit. Because Gordon, I mean, for all Gordon's worth in ZAR, I feel like he just didn't bring up Eli a whole shit ton. And, that you could interpret that for several reasons as to why he didn't, like, emotionally. I just figured, and Gordon's not a super, like, deep and introspective guy anyway, so I just thought this would be a really good time and sort of a character break for him in a way to go over it all.
Right.
Yeah.
After the Scourge, you rewrote like some of this Gordon flashback stuff, and I remember too, I think the original idea was he was just sort of gonna monologue in his head about all these things. But a big thing for me was, let's go all out. I want to show, don't tell. And so a lot of these scenes are actually filmed much later on. I think I actually filmed these bits here while I was putting together part 2 of the finale. So all these scenes you see here was filmed like way after the fact because of those script changes. But I'm happy we get to see them. We get to see Gordon with like shorter hair, like him going to the university and hanging out, him getting arrested and stuff, and him being in the military.
And when I wrote this out, I just thought, like, because I remember you saying like there's probably not going to be a chance to record anything else, so I just assumed it was all going to be dialogue. When I ended up seeing this in the episode, I was like, holy shit, Josh, what the fuck?
I know there were some things I kept secret from you because I wanted it to be a nice surprise, I guess. Yeah. I'm happy I got to put it together, and yeah, because once I've got through a large chunk of filming, I think shortly after I finished the finale in general, was a couple weeks, literally a couple weeks later, another big update came out, and that workaround I mentioned before, replacing the game files, no longer worked. It didn't. It was just by sheer chance that I finished filming the finale. Actually, I remember while I was even editing the finale, and if I wanted more footage, I couldn't because my game wouldn't start again. But thankfully, I had all the footage I needed on my computer by then. So I couldn't go back and film again as I was editing it in part 3. Crazy, huh? The timing, dude. Could you imagine if I didn't finish by then? My game just didn't work?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But, you know, I would have found a way, maybe. I don't know. But, yeah, this whole thing of, like, you know, yeah, Gordon crashing into them and stuff. And, in fact, a lot of the battle scenes in Part 1 were actually inspired by, Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon. That whole, like, Chicago battle. I was kind of inspired by that. You know, you hear some, like, similar music throughout some of these fight scenes, just because in my head I was, like, inspired by those, so that's kind of where that whole idea came from. And, the whole Alex coming back thing, I think it was important that when he comes back, he makes an entrance, and not only does he make an entrance, he has to save Catherine in some capacity. Because I want it to seem like, you know, a lot of characters are always constantly in peril, in some type of danger. But I think maybe it was a bit too on the nose with this, because you see all these helicopters and jets and zombies shooting all the rockets at her and stuff, and then she's just engulfed in smoke, and it sits on the shot for a while, and you're like, I don't think she's dead. I think a friend of mine thought like Carter saved her or something at the last second, so... No, Carter's pinned by the Omega. And they're like, well, what if he found a way to get out of them? I don't know. It's Carter. He could figure it out. I'm like, man, too obvious that she was saved, I guess. But it's fine. Sometimes when you have a vision and when you want it to happen, you just gotta, even if it's predictable, just go with it, man. Because it's better to have something be predictable and turn out good than something be unpredictable for the sake of it being unpredictable and it's bad. It just is sloppy and it's a mess. So even if you think it's predictable, but if you're confident in your head that's going to be good, just go for it, man. Go for it. And him jumping up at that helicopter, I had to film Alex in the green screen, him running up and punching it, and then I would, you know, I would have the sticky bomb strapped to the helicopter so that as soon as Alex on the green screen, you know, punches, like the ending part of his punch would hit the helicopter, then it explodes. That was from a sticky bomb that I detonated. What's funny is that helicopter is actually really strong in the game, and one sticky bomb wasn't blowing it up, so I had to put like 6 on there. I'm like, would you fucking blow up already? I threw like 7 or 8 of them on there. That's why you see all those explosions, like boom, 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 because it wouldn't blow up. See,
it makes it look cooler. It makes it look like Alex's punch was like delayed, like it had an after effect.
That's kind of cool. And then when it falls down, I also want it to fall down and like hit this vehicle. You'll notice that it's actually not destroyed again, the cockpit of that helicopter, because I got the shot of it exploding in the air, and then I want a shot of it hitting this vehicle right here. Look closely. Look under that star on next to the 76. Look on the wheel. Look at all those fucking sticky bombs I planted on that fucking thing.
Oh my god. Oh yeah.
See that? Ooh. Just barely.
Holy shit,
but it's so quick, you know?
Yeah. It's so quick you don't notice that the sticky bombs are there.
I wanted to put them on the opposite side, but it would have looked weird if the helicopter hits it from that side and they explode on the opposite side. It would look so off. So, but yeah, like you said, it's quick. Wouldn't even notice it. But gotta do what you gotta do, man. And what's crazy is, actually, I finished a large chunk of the script, but then because I had to reread it multiple times, and when I was rereading this particular scene when Alex is reunited with everybody else, I noticed looking at it, I was like, wait a second. Alex doesn't acknowledge the fact that Jake isn't here right now. oops. So I had to go back and rewrite it and to where Alex and all of them acknowledge that Jake is gone, because Alex doesn't know unless he found out some other way. But in the original script, it wasn't even brought up. It wasn't even acknowledged. And I was like, oh shit, Alex doesn't know, and he should be told. So I almost forgot to put that in. That's a pretty big thing that I just missed initially. So, but thankfully, it's good to read. I think this script was the most script I went back and reread multiple times to make sure I didn't miss anything, and that was one of them. So, thank goodness I read through again. But I feel like Scourge, you probably would have picked up on that too, so it's fine.
Probably. I mean, even if it would have slipped by, we would have obviously lost the good scene. But even if it would have slipped by, I'm sure you, like you said, you could have just implied that Alex maybe somehow heard the news somehow, through military radio or something, Yeah.
I think it's significantly better though that you see his reaction to it.
It's way better because you get all this really good dialogue.
Same with Gordon, because after I realized not only did he not bring up Jake, but he didn't bring up Gordon. I'm like, they just died. Why would they not bring that up? So
yeah,
thank goodness I read through it again. And I talked about it a little bit in our initial part 1 thoughts, but this scene where James reveals that he's immune, this is by sheer chance. So when he reveals that he's immune to everybody, what actually happens is, notice right there, as soon as he turns around, the traffic light changes to green, from red to green. It's like, James, go! Tell them you're immune, go! By sheer chance that happened. Like, sometimes I just get lucky and stuff just happens where I'm like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I think you modified the script a little bit in this Scourge when Carter's talking to Xander, because this is the time when Carter finally breaks free of Xander's, like, I wouldn't say control over him, but Xander's attempted manipulation of him, where Carter finally gets over that.
Yeah, I mean, I only slightly tweaked it, man. Honestly, like the scene itself was the same as what you wrote, just a slight line tweaks. I was glad that we'd wrap this up because I was worried that we were going to make these mind sequences too played out. So I'm glad that it pretty much ended here.
Yeah, I didn't want to just bring them up in one episode and they were never bringing up ever again. I wanted it to just be this and then it's wrapped up. We kind of get a glimpse of that with Manny in part 2, but in a much different way. You know what I mean? Where he sees like that demon, which I'll talk about later. But it's this whole like particular sequence of events of this happening. Like, this is the last one. Gotta wrap up all the plot lines, man. And then, yeah, this whole destroyed building, again, I had to make sure that some of these interiors that I wanted to film in that I never got the chance to, we got to take advantage of, and making sure that it was possible to use in the game, and if so, write it in the script, so that by the time I got to this scene, no worries, I got to film inside of it. But the only problem with this particular interior is you'll notice as they're shooting, the choppers are shooting at the building, the characters shooting out of the building, but you never see the choppers and the characters in the same shot, because when you spawn characters in that destroyed level area in the building, you don't see it from the outside. It looks like a regular building. Like, you just see it covered by a regular window. And when you're inside the destroyed building right here, so when they're shooting outside, you don't see them shooting at the choppers outside, because there's actually a invisible piece of glass right there. You don't see glass, but if you shoot at it, you'll see like cracked glass that's like in the air, and it looks so weird. So through some camera changes, I had to just work around that. So you'll never actually see them shooting at the choppers. It just intercuts back and forth because of that stupid piece of glass that was right there.
That's so strange.
These little things, man, that just the game did not want me to do, but I had to work around, people commented on it at the time, but like with the Gordon coming back and stuff, and you rewrote this, how he's essentially the full circle arc and stuff. This scene right here, I actually filmed this again much later on stuff. Like way later. When I almost finished filming the entire finale actually, and then when we got to this, I was like, okay, I'll film this a little bit with him flying just a little bit more because I didn't have enough footage of him like just flying in this particular time of day. I think that was important to come back and put in. So, and I put that shot was actually kind of complicated. I had to mask out Eli's face and then blend it and then make like the edges of it kind of fade out, but I wanted to put in like this is the last shot we're gonna get of Eli, and I wanted him to kind of think about looking at his brother and stuff. So
great stuff.
Yeah, full circle, man. Character arc completed. My friend Nightmare said that when he watched it. Character arc completed. Yay!
Flew out of frame as you said that on my screen. Character arc completed.
Yeah. We also see almost every infected type. In part 1, essentially, we get the Berserkers, we get the Omegas, we get the Incendiaries, we get the Frantics, we get all of them. Because you know what's the finale? You gotta go all out. I want to put all of them in it, so... And then we also get a bit of, like, horror in this scene with, you know, the Omega looking for them. This is inspired, again, by some action scenes in Dark of the Moon, when that Decepticon's looking for them, and they're hiding inside that building as it's looking for them. So, just little stuff like that I wanted to, you know, implement, but put in the ZER universe. This whole final fight scene here, when they're on, you know, all the destroyed cars and stuff around here, took up a lot of time, just because of, like, the sheer quantity of those destroyed cars. It took forever to spawn the modded location in, and because it's in 4K, you know, all those things, each clip was, like, 10 to 20 seconds, so, and I had to compile all those together for this bit here. So much work. So much work. Actually, filming this particular part right here when Manny fights this incendiary, I don't know how, because I was pretty good at not doing this, but by the time I got well into like part 3 when I realized, oops, I didn't film that part when Manny fights the incendiary when he punches it and explodes. I never actually filmed that. I had to come back here real quickly. As I was filming the extra Gordon stuff, I had to come back here and spawn in this modded area and then have this little sequence right here. That's why you don't see any of the other characters in the background, because it was just Manny and the incendiary after the fact. And I also had to get a quick shot of Carter just looking off like, whoa, what? I'm really glad, though, that I got this particular shot to work. Because all I had to do was I just had to make Manny's character invincible, throw a bunch of Molotovs on him, and then as I was playing as Manny, spawn in the water explosion effect that you see right here, which is enormous. You know, try to give each character the well due, like I said. It's pretty cool, because we never seen enhance, like, punch and incendiary. We've seen them explode, but, like, seeing them punch one, then it blows up, it's pretty damn cool. And the character is literally on fire. Like, we saw that before with the Omega being on fire, but seeing, you know, one of the main characters on fire and being phased, I think is just wicked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because it's already well established in ZAS 3, you know, that, like, fire is, like, a big no-no among infected and enhanced alike, you know? So Manny is special. It's one of his special traits.
Exactly. This shot here, a lot of visual effects and stuff, obviously, because in the game, you can't have a character jump onto a tank and it blows up. That's not a thing, so I had to film this where I had to get the shot of the tank blowing up. I had to get a shot of of Alex jumping and landing, and I had to, for some reason, I didn't like how the explosion looked in the game. It just wasn't big enough and didn't look right, so I decided to do After Effects of the explosion, and so that's how I got that. And the frantic scene, the good old frantics. It was important to bring them back because they were only really briefly in the series, but it was important that they make a return. There was a particular shot right around here that we'll get to that took me a long time. Right here. That particular shot took me a long time because it zips back and forth so fast. I call it a blinking effect. And so what I had to do was, obviously the Frantic is on a green screen, and then he zips back and forth. You only see him for about like 5 frames every single time he appears and reappears. And then he fades in and out very, very quickly. He also like leans slightly to the side to show that he's like trying to adjust his running position. And it's so quick. I wanted to emphasize, like, I wanted to show that, hey, the Frantics are actually kind of cool, but also scary. The whole chase scene here with Carter and the Incendiaries, people picked up on it pretty easily, but yeah, this was inspired by the scene in The Incredibles when Dash is being chased by those bad guys and stuff in the forest. But instead we're in an urban area. But I also wanted the part where he runs on water, because it's the finale, man. You gotta go all out, and people, I don't know, people love when their favorite characters like are just cool. When they do something cool, you know? And running on water certainly is one of them. So I think with that, how I managed to do this was every single character in this whole sequence is green screened. Of course, I had to get all the background shots later on, and with that, you know, the game kept crashing because of all the shots I had to do very, very quickly. And there's a certain method I use to get these moving shots. So what I did was I actually spawned in a fast car, and then I turned it invisible. The character and the car invisible, and I just drove it. Because what happens in the game if you move too fast, or if you move too far away from the character you're playing as, the textures that are far away in the game start to like de-render out and stuff to save memory, and that's just because of the limitation of the game's engine. So what I had to do was I had to spawn in that vehicle, make it invisible, and then I would just hook the camera onto it and then just have it record the actions of that. But this whole scene can't see it because it's invisible. But in actuality, right here, there is a moving car. And then what I also, in editing effects, I sped up the footage that it looks like he's moving a lot faster. But the whole running on water sequence, again, played out similar to how it did in The Incredibles. He sees like an obstacle, so he runs around it, and then he goes forward. Then he gets surrounded by enemies on both sides. He looks forward and notices water. And I wanted to make it seem like, oh shit, this is it for Carter. He's like, oh fuck. I think most people assumed he was just going to turn away, but he didn't. I wonder if Carter had a sense that this wouldn't kill him?
Not sure. It might have just been a mistake on his end, and like a sweet little accident, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Maybe he like tested it out briefly in like a pond, but he didn't knew if this was possible himself. Just
yeah. Plus, it's just nice, right? It's kind of like it feels like a full circle moment of like overcoming like one of the old weaknesses from the old series. Is like water has always been the big no-no, the biggest no-no. So it's like, fuck the water, we'll just run on top of it, you know?
Yep. Show how far we've come, man. I mentioned that before during our initial part 1 reaction, but how I pulled this off was because there was a mod where you could run on water, but it wouldn't work. It just didn't work. I kept falling through the water. So I thought, okay, well, I could probably just get the background shots and then put Carter in the Frantics in the green screen, just have them run against the background shots, right? But they didn't look quite right, because it looked like they were just there, just thrown on top of the image, and it didn't look quite right. And I said, what's missing here? Oh yeah, the water streams, the trails of the water they're leaving behind as they're running. So what I had to do was I had a quick idea I came up with on the spot, because at the time when I wrote the script, the running on water mod did work. When I got to filming, it didn't work. I had to improvise. What did I do? I spawned in invisible jet skis, baby.
I knew it. I knew you'd.
I made the jet ski and the character driving it invisible, and I recorded each of their actions driving on the water. And it was very finicky, because sometimes the recorded actions of the other NPC would just fly off to the side and fucking kill themselves sometimes. So, but That's why the sequence for the most part is not that long, because it was a pain, and whenever they're running against the stream, you have to put them in the right spot, and I had to edit the character on the individual part of the background image 1 frame at a time for the entire sequence.
Yeah.
This whole sequence alone for editing probably took me a month at least. Yeah.
That's painful, man.
And then you put the, the red filter over it, add some shaking effects to it to try to blend it in. Get the finished product. But good lord, so much work. And then this whole ending sequence where Carter runs around the tank and then gets in front of it. This is inspired by that scene in X-Men Days of Future Past where Quicksilver runs around that room, because he runs so fast, everything else is slow motion. That's what this was inspired by. I think that was pretty obvious, but yeah. Originally in the script, I had an idea where Carter would push James out of the way, but I'm like, no, because he's moving so fast, and if he pushes James would probably die. I like the idea more that he runs so fast that he gets in front of the missile before it hits James, but that severely weakens Carter, and that takes him out of the fight to raise the stakes up even more. So, but the whole bit with the all of the characters, they're in peril, like Gordon gets shot down, Maya gets shot in the arm, like things aren't looking good. You have to raise the stakes as much as you can to freak the audience out, so that when Jake returns, it's that much more impactful. The whole inspiration for Jake returning was inspired by Luke Skywalker returns in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Like, I love that whole build-up, how you don't know who it is yet, but you hear, like, this heroic music building up more and more and more, and then the big reveal. The shot with him standing behind the... Yeah, there's a particular shot where he removes his hood like this, but there's no animation in the game where the hood physically removes, but I found where they just sort of like do a whoosh with their hand. But I don't want you to see their face yet. So that shot right here, that was actually really hard to do. And then this particular shot where it blows up, I did various things. Obviously, Jake is green screened. Behind him was a helicopter that fell and blew up. That's also part of a green screen. And then the explosion effects. So what's cool, what you can do with mods is in the green screen, you can spawn in just the explosion effect itself and then green screen that out. It's very hard to do, and it takes a lot of like finicking around with the effect and stuff so that you don't see a lot of the green, but it gives you way more leverage in terms of what you can do with like the explosives and stuff. So that's part 1. And I think by that point I knew that this episode was going to be way too long, and I said to Scourge this, I was like, I'm going to have to split this into multiple parts, man. There's no other fucking way.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be a 2-parter, but it ended up going beyond.
Me same.
Yeah.
But this whole introduction of part 2, inspired by the opening of part 1, where you see the dark clouds, followed by a battle of jets and stuff, but it's way more, larger in scale this time. Again, using that same mod script I found for part 1 of all the jets fighting each other and stuff. Originally, this was going to be a lot longer, but I was like, okay, Josh, calm it down, take it down a notch, this is going on for really long. Plus, all these shots with these jets is actually really hard to do with the in-game camera, the in-game free camera, because as you move the camera in the game to get the shot that you want, it actually moves really, really slow. It does not move fast. There's not an option to make the camera move faster, so that when you get a shot that moves from one anchor point to the other, like when it moves around, it takes a really long time to move that around as you're trying to get the shot together. And I'm like, okay, I need to calm the fuck down with this, because this is taking me forever. After quite a bit of footage I got, in fact, I had even more footage of this where the jets fight at night. I was like, I had scrapped that entire bit because it didn't really fit in the episode, and I was like, I already have plenty of footage. Josh, move on. I get it looks cool, but goodness, dude, move on, please. And then with the battleship and stuff, at this point, it's just like a mod showcase, isn't it? With like the jet battle, the amphibious vehicles, the battleship. Again, before filming, I had to make sure all of this was possible before even coming up with these various like battle shots in this part. Was by this point I filmed all of these because I knew that the episode would have to be split into multiple parts, and so I knew that this is where I wanted the next part to start off with. And I knew that the previous part, I said to Scourge, I said, how about we end the first part where Jake is back? And then we start the second part, with, showcasing all the battles and stuff. It wasn't until probably midway filming part 3 or I was like, I have to split this into 3 parts, dude.
Yeah, there was just no other way.
Yeah. This inspired by D-Day, but obviously scaled down. Get the gist of it.
Yeah.
So the Jake clone bit, Scourge. We talked about it briefly, but this was ultimately your idea.
You see, this is an interesting thing, right? I had an idea in the beginning, but it changed along the way. Initially, my idea was that, because obviously this was all down to Marcus Arkwright's cloning technology, and initially the idea was that while the clone was being cooked up, Jake would have gone off and sacrificed himself, and this Jake that would have arrived then would have been the completed clone with all of his memories. So it's sort of like, picking up where the real Jake left off and things. Oh my god, the knocking the beanie off shot was really good, by the way.
That was by accident, by the way, and I just kept that in. And by the way, real quick, this is a thing throughout the whole show that I had a problem with, was when characters hug each other in the game, the animations are very, very fast. It's like super quick. They go, arms down, and then okay, we're done. It's so fast. So whenever you see this, I had to put it in the game in slow motion when they hug, because it's so short. Usually when you see characters hug for more than a second, it's because I had to slow it down.
Yeah, that was the initial idea, that we reversed it. Initially, we were going to have the cloned Jake arrive and pick up where the real Jake left off, but I believe you didn't really jive with that, which is fine. I actually still. This is interesting to say in discussion right now. I still maintain that the other idea would have still been fine. This is one of me and Josh's like very rare disagreements when it comes to story stuff. But when it all said and done, I was like, dude, this is your thing. I want it to be how you want it to be as well. Your magnum opus. So that's why we had the real Jake show up. Because I felt bad that we were going to have to clone, like you said, basically spawn in and then go off to his death, to his doom.
Right.
Like, fuck you, clone Jake.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I didn't want the clone to kind of take the place as Jake throughout this finale was, even though he shares his memories, his feelings, everything, like you said, just the idea that what you're seeing on screen is not the original. Like, no matter what you do, even if it's an exact replica, 1-for-1, it's still not the original copy. You know what I mean? Like, the flesh and blood you see in front of you is not the original. I was worried that audiences wouldn't connect with him as much because of that. And yeah, I wanted it to be full circle. Like, this is the Jake. This is, the last part of the story he's ever going to be in. And plus, the last time we ever see him in part 3, like, I want the audience to understand, like, this is the Jake that you saw way back in the day, Series 1, Episode 1. This is it. This is the last you're going to see of him. I didn't want it to be in a morbid way where the last you see of him is getting brutally murdered. I was just worried, despite him being literally the exact same thing, the exact same guy, memories, feelings, everything, that the audience still just wouldn't quite connect with him, because in the back of their mind, they're constantly going to say, that's a clone, right?
Yeah.
That was my worry. That's the reason why I pushed that. Let's have the Jake throughout the rest of this not be the clone, but the original, the OG.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, either way probably would have been fine, but that was just a concern of mine, was people just wouldn't connect with him despite that.
That's I'm just glad we could. I wanted to fit that in because it was an interesting sort of discussion and back and forth during development. Because it was some of the original ideas of having him return involved like using the hologram technology that like Xander was using to train with against Kurt and Zeke and stuff. It was all these initial ideas, but none of them we were like, it just doesn't make sense. So we eventually landed on with some. I can't remember if it was you or me. Like the back of our mind, we were like, oh my god, Marcus said that one line about cloning.
That was you. I totally forgot about that part.
I was like, oh yes.
And Ed, I think you said too that the original like hologram idea you actually like better, but then when you watch the episode, you change your mind.
That is very true because I mentioned this before, but in literature, there's this element called Chekhov's gun, where when a character picks up a gun in Act 1, by the end of Act 3, the character should have fired that gun. Otherwise, why did you introduce it into the story?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I thought that, and that's what I thought you were going with. And when I saw the original script that what Xander killed was a clone, or it wasn't it was the hologram, not a clone. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then you pointed something out to me. Xander is not stupid. He can hear heartbeats. He can hear breathing.
Yep.
He would know that Jake does not have a heartbeat. He's not breathing. Someone is messing with me, and this is not the real Jake. So when you brought in the clone and you explained that to me, I was like, of course, why didn't I think of that? And I play the character.
It was the only way for it to work. So.
I think so, yeah. Great explanation. I'm really, this is why you need to have multiple writers sometimes, throwing ideas back and forth. Two heads are better than one, man. And then this whole sequence with Jake, sneaking past the infected and stuff, filmed after the fact, when you told me about the cloning thing, I just figured Jake would sneak in there and hack the technology to become like the hologram thing, but
yeah.
I kept it in because I like how it looks, and it emphasized Jake's military skill and stuff, and him like I guess he wanted to send the location out to the clone, and then also filming the scenes with the clone too. So trippy. But it's crazy. I didn't film any of this until like after those heavy rewrites, so I went back and filmed the rest. And so little did the audience know that this is not the original plan.
Yep.
So But that does raise a question, though. Mm-hmm. If Xander can hear heartbeats, why didn't he hear Jake in his own base? Jake crawling around Xander's base, getting the information.
That's true. Yeah. I guess Xander. I mean, in the defense, right? I think the difference is that if Xander's like doing something else entirely and Jake is knocking around in the background, that's one thing. But if he's literally looking at Jake and he's like, you're in my sights, I'm killing you right now, then there's no justification for like missing a heartbeat or something, you know what I mean?
I think too, whenever you look back at the show, whenever Xander is trying to find something, he has to like focus. He closes his eyes and he focuses. So he's not going to focus on something that's probably not there, right? Sure, he could probably sense other serum users and enhance and stuff. If there's a human nearby, he's not gonna. He
wouldn't care.
That is true.
To him, it's probably the equivalent of there being a fly in the room.
Yeah.
You know.
Or like, I can hear a heartbeat and someone breathing around there, but the heartbeats are regular, but it probably didn't really even seem like that big of a deal at all to him. He probably acknowledged there was something close by that didn't sound like an infected, but honestly, he probably didn't care.
I like that we can have discussions about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Ed, though, because I never thought of
that. It's something that I realized, but Xander, he's probably so engrossed in whatever it is that he's doing that he hears that irregular heartbeat and he's like, "Nah, I don't care."
Exactly. And this whole sequence of Justin fighting the others I love because I needed to restore Justin's mind, have him overcome that arc and fight alongside the other guys again, because I didn't want him to be, in the background the whole finale, like I said. I wanted him to, do stuff. And then this whole scene where Justin overcomes Xander's mind control, again, very easily inspired by Harry Potter again, looking at Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix when Voldemort gets inside Harry's head. And the lines are similar, right? Where he has all these flashbacks and stuff of his friends and everything, and being like, Xander, you know what? You don't know what friendship is or love, and I feel sorry for you. And Xander's just so like, I think that was a bigger blow
for me.
Yeah, that's a bigger blow than you could ever do to him physically. Like you said, Scourge, that's how we're gonna defeat him. We gotta fight him in the fields. Yeah. Yeah, that plays out in a similar way, and putting together these flashbacks, good stuff. I like how we did the reaction to these beforehand, too. That was great.
It was so much fun.
Jake saying, he's never fought all of us, not a senior. That's from Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's a line straight from there, which fans wanted a while for me to put that in some capacity. So there you go. Welcome. Oh yeah, the Bruno Easter egg way in the background behind those soldiers. That white T-shirt and the pink pants. That's Bruno.
Nice.
Yep. It's the finale, so not only I'm not just gonna put text or something somewhere. Nope, he's actually gonna be there, way in the background. Yep. I created the whole the hair, the facial features, everything.
People asked me, because of the memes and stuff of Bruno, and the fact that he actually is physically there in this, because I pointed it out to someone, and they were like, "So is it canon that he's alive?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Maybe it's someone that was a fan of Bruno. Who knows? I don't know.
And there was my suggestion. Jake took one too many blows to the head, and he's envisioning Bruno there.
Or Carter was. Carter has PTSD from that. There you go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Someone took one too many blows to the head.
This whole scene, how Jake did not die is beyond me. I think I went a bit overboard, but he literally falls out of a plane and hits the ground. But I didn't know how else to make him, gravely injured. I guess what I should have done is have him be in, a parachute and then get shot down and then he hits the ground from too high up, I guess. This whole scene, actually, with him, seeing everyone die around him was inspired by the D-Day scene in Saving Private Ryan. And during that scene, what I like about it is how a lot of the sound just faints out. It's there's no music, the sound effects are all muffled and stuff, and the frame rate is trimmed down. It's chopped back. This particular scene I rendered in 15 FPS or something to show how shell-shocked Jake is. And again, pushing the anti-war message and stuff. But then we get to one of the most challenging, or actually this whole scene with Jake and Jonathan talking. People are have so many questions, what the hell is going on? Is this a dream sequence? What is this? In a sense, yeah, I think a lot of times when you're on the brink of death, you're gonna have, I like to think you have these surreal experiences, Maybe this is all just in Jake's head. Maybe Jonathan did actually talk to Jake. I don't know. I just thought that the idea of Jake being on his last leg about to die, who's he gonna get inspiration from? Him of all people. His dad. So, we never saw his dad up until this point. He was talked about, but his name was never mentioned. You see what he looked like? Nothing. That's kind of the whole idea of it, was he had this otherworldly experience as he's on the brink of death, so. And that kind of hints at Jake's character too, how he always keeps persisting and pushing forward too.
It's the closest, I think, in the whole story where it's gotten to full-on supernatural related stuff.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's so subtext that you could take it or leave it. It is up to you. What do you think happened? Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I like about it. We don't want to explain everything. We leave it to the viewer sometimes. Then this whole scene right here with this is inspired by the Battle of the Bastards episode in Game of Thrones. Best episode of that show by far. The ending of the show sucked, but I do love that episode. And this was inspired by that, where he's, facing down this line of enemies coming at him. He's by himself. And then there's also in that episode, there's a tracking, no cutaway shot. And I wanted to push myself to see what I could physically do in the game. So this shot with all of these enemies, explosions, just panning, also took a long time as well. Each part has very, very challenging shots, and this one was probably the most challenging of them all for obvious reasons. Every single laying dead character, the explosions, everyone running, all green screened, and I had to crop them in one at a time. A lot of work.
Damn.
And then this whole sequence with Manny seeing like this demonic self. This is Xander trying to manipulate Manny. This is the idea I had for it. Originally, I was going to have like this demonic figure be a new zombie type that they would have to fight. And then Scourge, you're like, Josh, no. But I kind of shot myself in the foot because I already installed this mod, this character model. And I'm like, I have to use it in a certain way because I already have it installed. And I said, ooh, what if I use this in some capacity where Xander utilizes this creepy creature to try to freak Manny out to demotivate him to not fight? Like, this is what you will become or whatever, because you killed a bunch of people before when you lost control of your power.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell. I never explained it, but that's the gist of it. And it freaked everybody out. And Scourge, I think you didn't even know what it looked like. I just mentioned it, and you're like, no. And I was like, okay, what if it's like a vision? And you went, okay, that could work. Yeah. But you never saw it, and you were like, oh my gosh.
I was like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. It's pretty wild. I like what you said, is that it can be interpreted in like all different ways, which is really cool. Like, I always took it as like it's sort of Manny's version of what Carter suffers from. It's like an indication of Manny's doubts and anxieties and shit like that about like hurting somebody by accident again.
How he feels about himself deep down and what he could become if he doesn't control himself. All the things. The fire tornado. I knew I wanted that be a thing like the show what Manny's actually capable of, but good lord, rendering this took forever. Forever. Being able to utilize the destroyed hospital, again, utilizing all the interiors in the game, I wanted to implement into the story. Again, with the Maya reinforcement showing up again, also inspired by Battle of the Bastards and Game of Thrones, where reinforcements arrive to save everybody. You love that shot, don't you? Don't you, Scourge?
Yeah, man.
Because we haven't really seen him use that ability in a while, so...
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
I love how he just sweeps away the Berserkers to show how powerful that move is, so...
Anime.
Yeah, that plane right there, that's from the Avatar movie, that shuttle, that bomber that they used, or they try to push the bombs out of. I found a mod for that, I'm like, that looks so freaking cool, I'm going to use that. And then, Ed, you had right there at the bottom right, that plane that you sent me, you wanted me to put in.
Yes, that is a VF-1S Valkyrie from Macross, because I'm a huge anime nerd, huge anime geek, and I said, if there is some way that you can put this in, I will animate it, I will render it, and I will give it to you to do with as you wish. And what I created was basically a 10-second loop of a Valkyrie just bobbing up and down in the air.
Yep.
It was like, I remember it was the highest quality rendering possible on my old machine, and it took like 12 hours. That took 12 hours to render. On this machine, I tried doing the exact same thing. It took about 27 minutes.
Damn.
But that's really cool, man. I never realized that you rendered it out.
But damn it, he wanted it, and I said, all right. Plus, a lot of these new planes you see right here are modded planes as well that I was able to use. You haven't seen them before in part 1, but as I kept filming, after I got all these modded planes to work, that's when I dialed it back, and that's when I stopped adding mods to the game. I'm going overboard here. It's like I had modded gun sounds, modded explosion sounds, like I like modded various sound effects in the game. modded vehicles, characters, everything. I had to calm it down because at this point I had over 1,000 mods installed. Literally, I had to take a step back. And then this whole scene right here with Jake and his vehicle, we talked about it briefly, but this was not in the script originally. Originally in the script, you know, you see these Omegas and Berserkers going up to Carter. In the original script, Jake just runs up to Carter, he throws down that anesthetic gas, and then picks Carter up and they leave, and I'm like, that's how he takes down the Omegas and Berserkers alike? Josh, that doesn't make any sense. I needed a way to drive them away, and I said in my head, wait, drive. I said, what if we have one last car chase? Because this is probably the last one we're going to see, well, apart from the one in part 3 with Catherine and James in her car. This is like the last one we're going to see. So, I was inspired by the scene in The Batman from 2022. I used the same sound effects from that. But this whole like chase sequence, what I had to do was the individual cars that were chasing him, I added these sound effects for each and every vehicle, and I had to get them to work for each and every shot. It's like when they fly by you, when they land on the ground and stuff, sound effects for all those. So visually, this wasn't hard to do, but sound effect wise, oh yeah, very, very hard. And Scourge, I think you liked it because you said this is like a classic, little classic chase scene.
Yeah, it felt like something from the old school series. And also, I remember that you showed me this in a call once, and again, I had no idea that this was going to happen either because I just had the script, and then you were like, showed me the scene. As soon as it panned to the car, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Wait a minute.
I was hyping you up and stuff, and like, oh, the zombies hear a sound. They don't know what that is yet. And you're like, Josh, what's going on here? And I showed you like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think you told me you loved it too, just because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, I remember.
So
I was like, wait a second, this wasn't in the script. What the?
yeah,
What's
it's
going
so
on?
fun. So
Yeah.
fun.
I think by this point, when I was filming this scene, I was like, yeah, there's going to be more than 2 parts, because this is going to go on for a while, so... I think by this scene, I was like, I gotta split it into 3 parts. And I asked you, Scourge, like, when exactly should I split it? And you gave me the idea when, as soon as Manny reveals his lineage, it should, like, just cut to black, right?
Yeah.
You came up with that idea for splitting it there, and I love that.
I just think the cuts for each part were just perfect, honestly. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's really cool.
This whole scene here with Jake and Carter, I wanted them to have one last, like, emotional conversation, you know, where Carter just really, besides his goodbyes to everybody at the end, he just lets everything out to his brother, because Carter just sort of says by this point, I'm done. I give up. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on the brink of death. Every time I fought Xander, I got my ass handed to me. It's over. I'm done. And then, you know, Jake, you know, uses his inspiration to help him up again. This is inspired by the scene in Return of the King when Sam picks up Frodo and carries him on Mount Doom. But not only is there not a mod for that in the game where a character carries somebody else on their back, but Jake doesn't have the capability of carrying an enhance on his back, because every time an enhance lands on the ground, there's like this big, you know, dirt explosion. So, car probably weighs like 2 or 3 tons. Jake's not picking him up. It's like trying to lift a car. Ain't happening. But I like to think that, you know, when Jake pulls him up and they keep walking, that Jake probably wouldn't have been able to lift him up on his own, but maybe Carter was just so weakened by this point that his power and strength was like so dampered down and stuff, that he was so weak that he, I guess, his mass weighed less?
Who knows, man? You could interpret it any which way. It's fine. And I'm just glad that we managed to squeeze more like Jake Carter, you know, brotherly moments in
Same.
and stuff. And you know what? I think one funny thing I remember was that, because I did a couple of rewrites for this as well. There was loads of shit that I wanted him to say, and one of the lines was that Carter was talking about his dark side in himself that he's always had, and Jake said like we all have a shadow. It's a mask we all wear. And then I was obviously referencing the fact that Carter wore a mask as Cypher. So I had him say, I have no masks left. You've stripped them from me, which is a line from Casino Royale.
Yeah.
But you that line, that's kind of awkward, that line, because that's like a romantic line between Bond
I know.
and fucking...
Yeah. Incest.
Do not want.
It oddly fits, though, in this context somehow. Oddly fits. But that's pretty much the gist of it for part 2, other than this particular monologue Xander has when he has them both, like, beaten down, is some of my favorite lines Xander has in the entire show. Because these lines I specifically waited to use until the finale. I wanted to wait to use the best lines until the finale. Like where he says, that's why you lost to me because I am everything you do not understand. I wrote that years ago, but I waited to use that in the finale. Well, fun fact. Ed, I know you love recording those too.
Oh, yes. I could tell that what you had given me it's hard to put into words, but it's like I knew how important this monologue was, and I just put my heart into the performance.
Did.
Oh yeah, man, you really did.
When I wrote the script, I wanted to push your emotions to... I wanted to get all the emotions out of you, because I knew that this is it, and I wanted to squeeze all that talent out of you.
Yeah,
and you did.
Your anger, your sadness, everything.
Yep.
That really, I think, hits home with part 3, which honestly, I'll just keep it real with y'all, I don't have a whole lot to say about this part. Like, this is where everything comes to fruition, everything I envisioned did happen. The way that this starts, really, this is inspired by an episode in Netflix's Arcane, when Silco is, like, underwater, and he has, like, a monologue, about being on the brink of death. This is, like, a whole, like, symbolization sort of theme here, where, Xander is, like, plummeting. It's referencing later on, so yeah, that's how he dies. That's probably how he's felt his entire life. Like, these quick little flashes and stuff you see on screen, I got that from the video game Prototype. Whenever you get into someone's head, you see these quick, like, flashes of, like, people's memories and stuff. That's where I got that footage from. And that little bit where he's, like, there's that surgical light, and he's, like, punching them back or whatever. That's also a quick little memory flash from that Prototype game that I used.
Very cool, man. I love
Yeah.
this whole beginning
Yeah.
sequence, and it's great how this beginning, like you said, ties into what we see at the very end.
And this was improvised, by the way, because, like, I only
Yes.
thought there was going to be 2 parts. So that when we got to this was all actually after I filmed everything, and I was like, I was getting the edited footage together, and I said, this is going to be way too long. I have to split up part 2 again into a third part. But how is it going to start? And then that's where I was inspired by the intro of that Arcane episode that I liked a lot. And I had some leftover footage of just like the sky and a green screen Xander footage with him dying. And I was like, I'll just use that. Fuck it. That's how it came to be. And you said, Ed, these lines in this intro were the last lines you ever recorded for him.
Yes, those are the monologue that you hear. Those are my last recorded lines of Xander. And I remember reading the description of what Xander's of the various flashbacks, and I was like, dude, listen, this is perfect. I can record some screams as a younger Xander of him, being experimented on. You said, no, that's a little too dark. It's best if we just have very quick visual flashes to what he's seen. Him screaming, too much. All right, fine. And honestly,
always trying to make it too dark.
yeah, and honestly, I agree. I agree with you on that point. Adding the screams, well, it would have been neat, but like I said, just too damn dark.
Yeah,
for sure, man.
And plus, I figured he's a lot younger at that time too. So
Yeah.
This whole flashback with like Manny and Xander, inspired by the God of War game where Kratos is teaching Atreus how to hunt and stuff. Even where the line where he says like, Do not be sorry, be better. That's from the God of War game. Yeah, not much more to say about Manny and Xander flashback other than, yeah, inspired by the parts in the God of War game. Then I also had to explain, you know, how they got separated and stuff. And of course, Nepo is always ruining families, so what are you gonna do? And get a small little glimpse of Xander's power as well, like how unstable it was and things. Again, also inspired by God of War, because Atreus is actually pretty powerful underneath all that stuff. So, and then this whole scene here, where I got a bunch of new visual effects put together for this particular finale that I found. I'm so glad I got to work because I think they actually look pretty good. This is inspired by Dumbledore fighting Voldemort in Harry Potter. Very similar sound effects. The way they're like their energy clashes and stuff, heavily inspired by that. But again, you know, Manny's losing because Xander's more powerful than that. I love being able to implement like Justin joking around and stuff. That was a lot of fun, right? With him just like fucking around. You know, when he sees the Omegas and he's like, hey Randall Flex, why don't you try and fight me? And they walk towards him. He's like, no. He's a fun character, right? I gotta say. And then it's kind of cool seeing like an Omega chase a speeding vehicle like this because we haven't really seen it before. But you know, I planned all this a long time ago, so the Omega was green screen and everything, but I had to blend that in. This whole fight scene right here, where there's like only music and the sound effects are faded, but the music is quite sad. This is inspired by that ending fight scene in Avatar: The Last Airbender when Zuko fights his sister, and it's a sad scene, but you know, it's pretty much the same music and it plays out in a similar way. So that's where that inspiration came from. And these visual effects scenes obviously took a very long time to make, you know, especially the shot right here where the energy is clashing his. He has like this force field around him and stuff. But a lot of this, thankfully, is new visual effects that I added in that I think look pretty good. Glad I found these.
It's great, man. And I really liked the implication here. I don't know if it was intentional, but I always liked the implication that Manny's powers were like in some little way similar to Xander's in the way that they were clashing, you know.
Like Xander has like white firepower kind of things, and then Manny has fire powers as well, so it only makes sense. This whole scene with like him beating Manny down, this flashback, the speech that Manny gives Xander, and then this little back and forth they have where you know, Manny's like, for fuck's sakes, father, in a few hundred years there's not going to be anyone you care about still alive. Why are you fighting for them? Like, there's not going to be anyone left. And then Manny says, no, I'd still have you, kiddo. And then that hits Xander in the feels. He tries not to cry. That whole sequence was inspired by the season 1 finale of the Invincible show, where he's beating down. It's the opposite happens. The dad is beating down the son, and the son says to the dad, no, Dad, I'd still have you. I remember the first time I watched that, I almost choked up a bit. I was like, damn, that cut deep.
Yeah.
And originally I thought, well, what if, like, you know, Xander lets his guard down because he's so sad, but Xander at this point is so far along his plan, he's not just gonna back out of it. But at the very least, this gets Xander to back off, beating the crap out of Manny so that he doesn't kill him. You know, buys them a little bit of time. So that's what you gotta do. This like the whole point of them finding Xander was a diversion to buy time, really distract him. This whole sequence here, Alex running on the skyscraper, inspired by again Avatar: The Last Airbender. That episode where Aang takes down that giant drill. You know, he runs on the wall, turns around, rushes down, slams onto it, and it explodes. That was inspired by this scene here. And I think it makes more sense for the Omegas to be way more vulnerable when they're like really frozen like that. The intimate scene between Alex and Catherine. The shot was actually pretty complicated to make. It required some like clever editing tricks with like masking and stuff so that his nose would go over her. And in this particular shot where his hand is behind her and his head, but his head is in front of her. So I would have like multiple like masking layers of that, so where you know, because both of them are green screened in, but he would be his hand would be behind her body, but his face is in front of her face. So it's some clever editing tricks that I had to utilize to make it work, and I'm glad I pulled it off, because this is actually a challenging shot to make too.
Am I wrong in assuming that this is the first on-screen kiss in all of ZA?
You're correct. Isn't that
Damn.
crazy? Because there's no animation in the game where two characters kiss. There's just hugging. Isn't that crazy? And you rewrote a lot of this, Carter, in the mutated Carter scene.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be neat if Carter had like a sort of overcoming his mutated self thing, or coming to terms with that dark side of himself, which the whole dialogue was inspired by some dialogue from Sweet Tooth in the game Twisted Metal.
Yeah, Justice picked up on that. That's nice.
Just badass writing. Yeah, I just thought it was really nice to throw this in there as well. Good stuff.
That's cool, man. Yeah. The scene with the flashback, this is the first time we ever see Frederick Gold. You know, again, full circle. I wanted to show, you know, like, show exactly what Carter went through. It was implied, but we never saw it.
My only thing that I look back on with this scene, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, is when looking for, I originally tried to find a voice like through female VAs I know and stuff, to try and do a kid voice, but none of them could replicate like a British accent. I ended up just doing it with some filters on and stuff, and I do think it's a little bit cringe, but like it gets the job done, you know what I mean? You get the gist. So
I tried using AI to make your voice sound more like a kid, but it always turned out bad. So I had to just use some audio effects to change the voice a little bit.
Yeah.
It already sounds like he hit puberty a little bit, but he does sound younger at the very least. So
yes.
And the other thing too is I couldn't find a decent child character model that like, this is the only other one I could find, and this is a young Bruce Wayne character model, and he's wearing a suit, which I hated, and there's not a way for me to change that. So through some camera angles and shit, I made it so that you don't see the front of his suit, just like the back, close up of his face, and that's it. And like the weird texture on his face, I guess is just an after effect of the model. But I guess you could just assume that's just a symptom from like his, you know, being experimented on. Really sad.
Yeah. Who knows, right? We still don't really know what Frederick did to him, but I like that is deliberately vague. We don't need to know.
You don't need to see it. That's yeah. Sometimes show don't tell, yes, but sometimes you can not show and understand what's happening still. Yeah.
Yeah. When I voiced Frederick, I was basically imitating Kurt, but since my voice is not as deep as yours, Josh, I just could not hit the same timbre. So I just was like, okay, fuck it. He's probably just gonna lower the pitch anyway in post. Yeah. So this is just my imitation of Kurt.
Well, I do like how Frederick sounds like Xander, because Xander is Procasium, the embodiment of it, and Frederick's kind of the one that fucked it all up. So I do like the fact that they sound similar. You know, it kind of implies that, you know, they're connected.
That's cool. I was masking any Atlantic Canadian-isms in my voice with Frederick, and it makes sense that Xander. I had canon that Xander idolizes Frederick as a god for creating Procasium. And of course, he would try to mimic Frederick as much as possible, and including his manners of speech. So there we go.
Like that. Yeah, he looks. I mean, Frederick was definitely the most fucked up one, and I think Xander would appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the meteor bit here. So we talked about it before, but originally the idea was Xander was going to pull a Thanos and rip a chunk out of the moon, and then Colin Scourge, very rightly so, said, "Josh, tone it the fuck down. That's going to fuck up the Earth's tides." I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I had to rip out the mountain from within, which, yeah. And then the meteors themselves, ever since I saw the mod for that, I'm like, I want to use that, damn it, in some way. And I'm glad we got to use it finally. But again, it would even shorten the length of the clips I could record even further. And while it's cool that we see them and stuff, my only little nitpick with these is when they fall, sometimes the smoke trail they leave behind just disappears very quickly. That's just a byproduct of the limitation of the mod. So like right around, you're going to see a shot right here where the smoke just vanishes quickly. Just limitation of the mod, but damn it, it looks pretty freaking cool. I don't care.
Agreed.
And it goes on for a while, which you can imagine was a pain to put together for the rest of these scenes, you know. Like it took with this scene here, them getting hit by the chopper getting hit by a meteor. I was like waiting for one of them to hit me because I kept dodging them too well. And I was like, okay, come on, something hit me, hit me. There we go. I got the shot. Moving on. The scene with all the jets and the meters flying around. Yeah, I could not record this very long because this was eating up hard drive space so fast. That's why this is a pretty short scene. But then you see like how it's affecting like the rest of the battle and stuff, which I love. You know, you see like everybody falling on the ground and things, how they're being affected by it. Because I wanted to emphasize the sheer scale of this battle and not just focus on the characters we know the whole time, to emphasize this is a huge battle. Like there's stuff going on over here, there's stuff going on over there, there's a lot going on in this. That was important to me. This whole chase scene, I always wanted like a car chase while meters falling down. It just seemed like a cool image to me. This whole scene when Charlene fights the Berserker and saves James and Catherine, that was inspired by the scene in Return of the King when Eowyn fights the Witch King one-on-one, and she takes him down through like a certain method. So like I came up with the idea where Carter gives Charlene those bullets they used on Arson. Carter modified them, and then he used them, those B-58 shells in episode 5, he put them in a shotgun. But he said, you know what, I feel like Charlene needs these way more than me, because I got my ability, she doesn't. And it's sort of like a little cheat code she has to overcome the Berserker. So that was the inspiration for that. This whole thing here with Carter motivating Alex and stuff, that was inspired by Thor Ragnarok. But there's a scene in that where Odin tells Thor, you know, you're not stronger than me, you're stronger. That was the inspiration for that speech, and then Alex just like cuts loose.
A little bit of the dialogue that I added in for Carter giving Alex the pep talk was inspired by the opening of Rambo 3.
Oh, hell yeah. Very nice. I did not know that. That's cool. And then, yeah, having him cut loose and stuff, I like to think when an enhanced really reaches their peak, or when they reach into like near God territory, they have like these sparkling effects. Because in a lot of media, you see like godly figures like sparkle and stuff. So that's where the idea came from. Like where they're really, really, really at the peak of Pocassium, they have like this glowing, sparkling effect. Obviously though, Xander's still too powerful, because at this point, he's pretty much, before they revert the device, Xander's pretty much unstoppable. He just can't be stopped. These shots, though, where all the ribs are breaking, I did get those shots from Mortal Kombat. I actually went in, played the game, did some fatalities, I recorded that footage, and I zoomed in on just the bones breaking, and I put it in.
Hey, it works.
It does work.
You can't get that in the game, so you gotta make it up as you go along, I guess. After Carter gets knocked the hell away, because I wanted that scene where he runs back to the device. He has like that little talk in his head with Jonathan Stone, who calls him Eric once.
Yes. Yeah, it really just going back to like old shit that I'd thought of many, many years ago that I'd hoped that we could work in somehow. I always assumed that, considering Josh wasn't Jake's real name, that perhaps Carter may have had a real name lost somewhere to time. And I always joked and said it might have been Eric Stone, because the comparison I was making was Jeff and Evan, you know, from the cowboy time.
Ah, a name starting with the letter E.
E, right? So J-E, and I thought Eric Stone, so it was just a little hint at his real name, you know?
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you put together, for the most part, some of this running shot, because I needed your help with it. It was inspired by the scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League when the Flash runs and, you know, time is reversed, like all the bad stuff gets reverted. But I didn't want him to run so fast that he reverts time. That's a bit ridiculous. But he runs so fast, he gets there before Xander can make contact with James. And so, these shots right here, you did, Scourge. And then they have, like, we rewrote this scene right here where Carter is talking to Meryl in a flashback. So that was the rewrite. The original idea was Carter is talking to Meryl in his head as he runs. I think you wanted to cut down on the supernatural stuff a little bit and have him reminiscent on like a good memory he has, knowing he's about to die.
Yeah, like I just thought maybe the memory would empower him or something. And plus, I just thought it'd be nice to show shit that we've never seen, right?
Yeah.
Like them first meeting and stuff. The only time we'd get to do this.
If you watch this scene closely, it starts black and white, but as it goes on, we get color.
Yeah, that was a nice touch, man.
Almost no one noticed that, but I wanted to do that to show like how grim, how sad things are, but then they get better as it goes on.
Yeah.
This shot I did, and then this shot I did. I found some, I found some new visual effects that I added in. This whole giant package of new visual effects I added and stuff. These shots took a while, but they pretty much came out how I wanted them to. So
yeah,
that scream I do, man, where he gets warped back, where he's inside the device. Good lord, my throat.
Dude, I had a lot of fun editing some of these effects here, but like I said earlier, that man, these clips were so powerful, dude. There were some beefy clips.
Memory-wise, yep, for sure. Then this whole scene where Xander is pissed off that he's like, his plans ruined and stuff, and then he hits James, but James is okay, and James is like, not my blood. Inspired by the God of War game, there's a part where Baldur punches Atreus, and then Kratos is freaking out, but then Atreus says, this blood isn't mine, and then he looks over and he sees bloods all over Baldur. I'm like, oh, that is so freaking cool. Let's implement that some way. So the lines, the way the scene plays out, that was inspired from that sequence in that game. And I know, Ed, you love recording those lines, especially when he's pissed off.
Yeah. That you've changed nothing. The livid Xander scene, as I like to call it, those are my favorite lines. Out of all of the lines that I recorded for the character, that was it, because I tried to put as much bile and venom behind those words as possible, and I think I pulled it off.
You certainly did. And originally in this scene, or in the original script, it was implied that Xander is like, you've changed nothing, I feel stronger than ever. I remember, Scourge, you sent me a message like, that doesn't make sense. Wouldn't he be weakened by that? And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. So I actually, I cut out those lines where he says he feels, stronger than ever. So I trimmed out those lines. I think it makes way more sense in the context, because like he's being weakened now that the device is reverted. So
yeah, I had the same thought as well, but I was like, hey, it's Josh's story. I'm just recording the lines.
Look, you can argue Xander was reaching his most dangerous state here, because like an animal that is backed into a corner or wounded, it could become more dangerous.
Or he was bluffing.
True.
Either that, yeah.
But this scene when Carter fights Xander, I wanted each character to give them a chance to knock Xander back, and I'm sure this is very satisfying for Carter to do, where he reaches his full potential. And this is inspired by the fight between Captain America and Thanos in Endgame, when just for a brief moment, Captain America is holding his own against Thanos. And again, all new visual effects too, which I loved, being able to... I had so much fun playing with these.
Really cool.
Yeah. With that one scene where Carter punched Xander into the air, if I had known that you were doing that, I would have recorded a scream of him. Just either a scream of pain or a scream of astonishment, and given it to you and be like, here, put that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he flies up in the air, it's a clever editing trick, is I recorded the footage of him falling down, and then I reversed the footage of it. So that right there, he's actually going down, not up. But I reversed it. Fun little fact there. Yeah, I had a lot of fun letting Xander go all out in this scene here. I was throwing so much visual effects on here that you couldn't see Xander's body anymore, so I had to trim it down a little bit. Like you can't see him at all, so we gotta take that back. This particular scene, where we see all these colors and stuff, inspired by an episode in Avatar: The Last Airbender when Aang and Zuko do that dragon dance, and they see all those color effects on the fire. surrounded by them. That particular image was inspired by that. We sort of explained, like, you know, when they're all in close proximity, they sort of get interconnected, and that, like, excels them.
That we've come full circle with going through our colors as well. Of
Yeah.
like Procasium and stuff. Like we've done red, we've done yellow, we've done green. So now fuck it, we're doing rainbows.
All of them, all the colors. Procasium is like, I don't know which color to use. All of them. And
Procasium Power Rangers.
yes. We debated for a while how and who should Xander die. I wanted him to fall down into something. And I said, wouldn't it be so poetic if he dies against the very thing that he spent trying to kill humanity with, which is the device? Because he had no idea Xander was building his own grave. Think about that. Because there's a quote I love from J.R.R. Tolkien. Evil cannot create, it can only destroy. And that speaks so true here. Xander was building the very thing that would kill him. Had he had known this, he would have not wanted to build it at all. And that was important to me. Was I wanted to emphasize, you know, that evil can't create, it can only destroy, and it's so poetic. The very thing that Xander thought would bring about salvation brought about his damnation.
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
And then the other thing was, who should kill him exactly? For a while, we thought it was going to be James. Like, maybe James would rip off a piece of the device and shoot it against Xander, and that would cause him to fall. We thought, maybe it should be Jake. No, I'm not Jake again. Maybe it should be Manny because he's the dad. No. But then I said to Scourge, I said, if I could figure out a way to make it work, I want all the characters, the OGs plus Alex, at once to do it. That way everyone kills him together. There's no, like, one single savior. They all do it by working together. They all put all the fighting and arguing, they all put it aside, because they know what has to be done. And that was, I think, important, was to come full circle with it. And then this particular scene, Ed, you want to talk about where you went back on Xander's sassiness a little bit?
Yes, with this scene in particular. Remember, way back in the intro to episode 6, or when we were discussing that, I said, remember the voice I used. So if you go back, watch the intro to episode 6, and then watch this scene as Xander's dying, same voice. That is the voice of a child, of a boy who realizes that he's about to die. All of the attitude, all the snark, all the sass, gone.
That's really cool.
This is quite possibly for the first time where Xander is at his most vulnerable and also his most serious.
I'd say his most genuine as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. That it's the same voice.
Because he knows he's getting weaker and weaker, and then I found a visual effect for it, you know, inspired by Infinity War, where they almost dust away into atoms. Because if he just gets punched through or whatever, through his stomach, he's going to heal from that. So I wanted him to, disintegrate completely. And that was also important for me to show that with the other zombies as well. This is it. They wiped out Procasium. They're good to go. The only thing, though, is, people asked me, you know, if it's wiping out Xander right there and the infected, why isn't it wiping out, Carter and Manny because they're standing right there? Well, my explanation for that is because that would be a terrible story. And number two is they're enhanced. They're a little bit stronger than the others, and you can say, well, the Omegas are strong too, but they're just purebred grown Procasium. Right? Carter and Manny still have some humanity in them. And Alex has no Procasium at all. So that's kind of a little cheat code they have on why they weren't wiped out right away. It's still killing them, and they feel it, but they don't get wiped out right away. That's sort of the explanation for it. These particular shots took a while, but once I got the gist of it down with how they get dissolved and stuff, smooth sailing from there. I said to myself, these are some of the last visual effects I'll ever have to put in, so...
I always liked the contrast in Xander's death compared to the other villains of Zombie Attack, because Kurt's was explosive, pow, you know, and Zeke's was sudden, just bang, sudden, dead. And Xander's always felt very serene to me, just dissolve. All of them going serene, you know. I always really liked that contrast.
And like, you know, both of them, it felt very satisfying. But for Xander, I wanted it to feel like you almost feel sad for him. That's why his death is technically the slowest. You know, it's not quick like Kurt and Zeke's, it's slow. And this whole scene inspired by Mass Effect 3, because you hear the music and stuff, and all the enemies get wiped out. And also the ending of Gears 3, where all the locusts get dissolved. So, this whole sequence really, from here on out, where the characters say goodbye, I have absolutely no nitpicks, complaints, nothing. Nothing. It's them just talking, reminiscing on what just happened, and them saying goodbye to each other. Like, this is the culmination of it, you know? And I loved how I got these lighting effects by having the rain clouds at a certain time of day. I love how the lighting came out, so I just kept that throughout the entire scene. It was pretty straightforward to make. I mean, it was probably the most emotional I got while editing it. It's like, try to edit something and not cry. It's kind of hard. It's hard.
For sure.
Especially after I added in the music. Goodness. But I remember as we were getting close to the release of this part, we were getting pretty close to the release date for it, and I was like, oh crap, I gotta truck along here. Put this together quickly. We were like, I think by the time I finished rendering it, the whole part 3, we were like 5 days away from release. Very close. I was close. Almost didn't make it, but I made it. So really this whole scene, I don't know how much to say other than it's emotional. I loved everything about it.
And
Alex explained, them revealing to Alex, hey, you're not a Percassium user, you're something else entirely. All the characters saying goodbye to each other and stuff. And I said it in our initial reaction to it too, but the scene when James hugs his dad and James is like tearing, like really sad. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I wasn't really acting, because this is me saying goodbye to these characters that I created and I love. Like, this is it. It was hard for me, dude. It was hard.
Yeah. I remember you had this, a lot of this. I remember you discussed this with me years ago. This is how you wanted it to end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the characters I wanted them to say goodbye to each other. You know, I didn't want them to just talk over the radio, okay, I'm about to die, bye. I want them to be there in a group and all talk, say their goodbyes, like a proper goodbye, and that's it. That was important to me. Everybody was getting choked up watching this scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the whole part, honestly. It's tough because it's sad, but it's really good, though. It's hard for me to rewatch because then I get teary-eyed and I'm like, oh, gosh. Imagine me the one having to, you know, film it and edit it and export it, all that. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it has like a whole part of Carter and Jake and Manny like just discussing stuff from earlier in the story, just like reminiscing, that pretty much spells out like, you know, this is the end. Let's have a quick, like, how good it's been and stuff before it ends.
Reminiscing on the good old days.
Yeah, it kills me looking back at it as well, because it is saying goodbye to not only the story, but a big part of our lives of working on this.
Yep, it was 15 years, man, of our lives that we're saying goodbye to. You know, it's hard. It's really hard.
In my throat talking about it, dead ass.
Yeah, I get it, man. And Ed said the same thing. You know, when we were watching this, he wasn't talking a lot because he was like getting choked up. I was too, honestly.
Yeah, the tears were flowing at this point because I was like, to me, I mean, I'm just the understudy of the actor who played the villain in the final act. I haven't been with you guys since the beginning, so the emotional blow is not as strong for me. But this is still a character that I became attached to. This is a project that I've become incredibly fond of, and with it being over, you know, yeah, I'm sad that it's over. But at the same time, it's also something that I can take great pride in.
Yeah, dude.
A lot of these, Scourge, we planned on like having, you know, the device explode, and we knew exactly what music we wanted to use too for this whole scene, and it turned out exactly as I wanted it to. You know, if it exploding and the music choice you wanted came out exactly as we wanted it to. A lot of these ending scenes here, you know, with like James proposing to Maya, them showing the wedding, and stuff, which I'm glad I got. This whole area was a mod I found, by the way. That's pretty obvious, though. This whole sequence here, Justin giving the speech, this is a modded location as well. Meryl is actually standing back there because she wanted to attend this event, because I like to imagine later on she found out that Carter was still alive and she wanted to be here to like show support and stuff. Like, this is like closure for her, like true closure. So it was important to me to have like these little Easter eggs behind the scenes to show that these characters really care about each other. I think it's nice that she was there to attend it. And then you see these flashbacks of characters that have passed and stuff. That was important that I include, little shots of them and things. Originally I put Eddie in here, but I was like, but he was a serial killer. Why would we pay respect to him? So I cut that out of the script. And then these statues, divined by Ed Meister, which Scourge, me and you thought about putting in, but we didn't know how you were going to craft them. And thank goodness Ed knew how to do it, and they turn out great. Like,
thank goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much stuff turned out exactly as we envisioned them to.
I am so proud that I got to contribute in some way other than just as an actor.
I know.
Oh, good, dude.
You put in visual effects as well. That's amazing. The last bit of shots here, I knew this is how I wanted what happened in the finale when James gets he thinks there's his dad in the distance. He runs after him, and then they get to the top of the skyscraper, and you see the beanie. I like to imagine, I leave it up to the viewer whether or not Jake reveals he's still alive to them or not. You could say, well, he didn't because he doesn't want to put them through that emotional pain again. Maybe he does because he wants to say goodbye to them one more time. I like how it's vaguely, like, we don't... I'll leave it up to the viewer to decide. Does Jake reveal himself to his family again, or does he not? I'm never going to answer that question. I'll leave it up to you guys. Part of me wants to say he did, but part of me is also like, that would cause a big emotional toll on them, especially Charlene. She'd be very pissed off. I'll leave it up to the viewer to decide. Did he return to show that, hey guys, I'm still around just for a little while longer, but you gotta watch me die again, because, I got a heart disease, or did he not?
Yeah.
In the bridge audio that I have for the Zombie Attack series and for my series, I actually do address that, but again, my series is not canon to the Zombie Attack series. So what I have, or what the story that I've proposed, if you have something completely different, that is completely okay.
Yeah.
My shit is not canon.
Totally fine. And it was important to me that the last shot of each character's face is of them smiling, and most of the characters' last lines are them laughing. So I wanted to show that to the audience, hey, these characters, we're saying goodbye to them, but you know what? They're going to be okay. They're happy now.
Yeah.
They have peace. And Catherine finding out who her father's killers was, with Alex finding out his real identity the next scene, Justin, the Goltex in good hands, Gordon building, great technology for the future, all these things. It's the culmination of, all of their arcs being satisfied. And I wanted that last shot of each of them smiling, knowing that they're going to be okay. And then this whole scene with Alex and Kurt, or this whole scene, I think, Scourge, you wrote. I think you rewrote the entire thing, but...
This honestly is a relic from what was going to be the end of Alpha Protocol.
Yeah.
And I just sort of stitched it in with the idea of Jake still being actually alive and training Alex, which I thought would be cool to suggest that Alex is like a protector of the future generations and stuff. So, yeah.
To know that, if anything might happen, they'll still be fine because they got Alex. I mean, Procasium is gone, but, to protect James and his family and so on, that they'll be okay, because Jake is going to die soon, but with Alex around, because Enhanced live for far longer, then they'll be fine,
That's greatest creation.
Yep. Was his unofficial son, in a sense. And then the final shot, really, of, Jake saying, what a great day, full circle, that's the first line he said in the saga. And then, the last shot of his face, again, smiling. And then the last shot of Alex's face, smiling, him walking off like that, because the show starts with him walking as there's a sunset. It ends with him walking away to the sunset. So that was important for me to put in.
Beautiful stuff.
I guess I'll address this real quick. Hard for me to talk about, but for those of y'all that don't know, Austin B, he was one of my best friends in high school. who sadly passed away. Jerlene M. and Hortensia R. Those were a friend of mine, the Pollinator. Those were his grandparents who passed away. Sue L. That was Justice's mother, passed away from cancer. And then Tracy, that was my stepbrother. But it was important to me that, because I know at least my stepbrother and at the time, Austin B. were fans of the show. Part of the reason why I worked so hard on it is I wanted to honor not just the fans, but them. Like, I think they would have been proud of this.
Yeah.
Instead of like the previous ending credits where it's like all glitchy or it's like dark clouds, it's bright clouds. You know, it's a sunrise or sunset. To give the viewer like, hey, things are good now. It's gonna be okay. And of course, we get the futuristic shots, which are all a mod. I'm so happy I found and started using. Scourge, I showed you these shots. Your initial reaction was, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, dude, I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but because you recorded all of this portion, and there's a portion coming up that I recorded a very long time ago for this end credits stuff, but
Yes.
I couldn't do any of this. I did, when I recorded that stuff, actually have in the background a big futuristic tower. But when I put it into the Rockstar editor, it just wasn't there.
Yeah,
it just vanished.
Fades away.
But it's one of the things, isn't it, with the editor? But I'm really glad you managed to put these shots in.
Like the modded character models, the modded futuristic vehicles and stuff, you know, to make it feel like a living, breathing, futuristic world. This car is so freaking cool.
I know.
It's called it's just called a cyberpunk car mod. It's so freaking. Yeah. These shots here, right from here, Scourge filmed years ago. Because we knew a long time ago this would be the post-credit scene in the future. But I'm sure it was trippy for you to see these finally in an episode.
Dude, it's literally years ago. Like,
Yep. Old man James and his son talking, and I love how the last line is James saying, "What a great day it really is. If only you could have seen it too, Dad," and it cuts away to black. Just very, very bittersweet. And again, it's still vague if Jake revealed himself one more time to his family. We don't know. And I'll leave that up to the viewer.
exactly,
Hi, kitty.
Yeah.
So, and then getting a last shot of the characters right here, that was important to me too. You know, one last send-off.
One last hurrah.
And that, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, was Zombie Attack Revelations. You know, I've said this before, but like, yeah, this is a project I'll look back on fondly. I imagine one day, when they're old enough, like, showing my kids this, them showing their kids this, you know, and it's definitely a huge highlight in my life. Because originally when I started the saga as a whole, Series 1, I was going through a really tough time in my personal life. And, you know, I was bullied pretty harshly. I didn't have a lot of friends or anything. And my family moved around a lot. So I didn't get a chance to make friends. And then when I started saving up for money, I saved up for my console. I saved up for that wireless adapter on that shitty Xbox 360. I saved up for GTA 4. And, you know, I met a guy named Manny. We were playing Left 4 Dead and GTA 4, and he was like, how cool would it be if, like, you know, we mixed them together, have like a zombie outbreak in GTA 4, and what if we just record it for fun or whatever and put it online? Couldn't have imagined what it would turn into, you know? And the amount of positive feedback I got from people and the overwhelming support, that helped me a lot through those times, you know? Like, that was definitely a highlight for me in my life. And then, honestly, without you guys, I wouldn't be here right now. Imagine if I didn't make this. None of us would be talking. This video you're watching would not be here. It's you guys watching that made this possible, really. Like, you helped me in a very dark place in my life. You really did, and you still did. As I was filming Revelations and people telling me how blown away they were, you know, as we rewatched a lot of the seasons, I think back and go, there's so much cringe in those. Like, some of the reactions we did to the previous seasons, those are rough to get through for me. But this one, honestly, because I do want to do a reaction to the ZAR one day. That's probably going to be, I don't know, in a year or two, who knows. But I'm not going to have a whole lot of nitpicks or complaints, honestly. Apart from a couple things, I'm, to this day, very, very happy with how it came out. You know, eight years of hard work. And I can safely say from the bottom of my heart that I'm glad how it came out. Especially the finale. It came out exactly as I wanted it to. You know, and
Yeah.
I didn't do it by myself. I had really talented people like M. Meister bringing these characters to life. I had great ideas from Scourge and stuff, a lot of help along the way. And of course the fans for backing me up. You guys have truly changed my life. You have.
Amen to that, brother.
You know, I like to think in like 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, even after, you know, even everybody watching right now, after we're all gone, this is still going to be a lasting thing on the internet that will always be here. You know, this is so much of who we are. Who we are is on screen. You know, especially me. That's kind of like a vulnerable thing I felt a long time ago, but now it's like it's cool to see, you know, the progression of not just the production of the show, but as a person. Because you talked about it briefly, Scourge, in the thank you video, but like, you know, looking at me as a person, how the show evolved as well, it's like it's you know, you grow as a person quite a bit. You learn so much. It's
absolutely, dude. Yeah,
it's so
weird to
surreal.
look back. You look back on it and you remember things about yourself compared to where you are now. You know.
You cringe so hard, like, that's how I used to be? Ugh. You know, my voice sounds so different back then. The way I wrote was so cringe. And then you look at this, and it's like, we really have matured so much, you know. And fans reach out to me, you know, all the time and say, you know, how grateful they are for the show, how it helped them as well in a dark time. And that's a very humbling feeling.
Absolutely.
I don't have much else to say other than thank you guys so much. This changed my life. It's hard to say goodbye to this project. It really is, but it needs to be done. We're ready for the next chapter. We're ready for the next project, whatever that is, because no story should last forever. It's important to wrap it up and wrap it up as good as you can, which was important to all of us. So we went all out, and I'm very happy with how it came out, honestly. Final thoughts, Scourge, Ed, and then we'll wrap it up.
It's just I don't know. I'm really in the same boat as you, man. It's hard to say what hasn't already been said. It just feels very strange to be at this point right now compared to where I began, where it was like, hey, you know, I'm sending you a message on Facebook not Facebook, YouTube messages. Who remembers YouTube messages? You know.
Oldies.
Like, oh, I really love the show. Here's an idea. I hope to see a series 2 if that'll happen. Probably not. Now look where we are. You know what I mean? I ended up getting involved, and now we're right here at the very end doing a commentary of the very end point of the story. It's very cool, man. Seeing the whole thing as a big chronicle. So,
yeah, and this show really, you know, made us become close friends, and you know, led us to meeting in real life and stuff, which I need to do again with you. That was awesome.
One day, man. One day.
Yeah. Ed, final thoughts, man?
Me? Well, like Scourge said, there really isn't a lot that I can say that hasn't already been said. It's just thank you for having me along for the ride, and we really need to do this again sometime.
We need another project. That's what we need.
We need to occupy our time again. Maybe not to this scale, but something. We'll figure it out.
Something.
But again, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been great stuff. Hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, let me know. Happy to answer them. If I don't know, I'll try to find the answer for you. But one last time, guys. You guys rock. I love you all, and see you in the next time. Peace out.
Peace.
See you later.